tell, do you see the road? I'm out to my soul into the size. Whenever the smoke clear out of my face and my picture perfect, you do it. All of that green together, the truth, yeah. When I tell you the
Hello and welcome back to Cypherfics. We are happy to have you back with us today in part 7 of What If Danny Phantom Meets the Proud Family. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and also press the bell icon so that you never miss a great update. Also, make sure to check out the wonderful author Pokemon Fan 1991 on FANFICTION.net. Well, with that said, now let's straight continue with the story.
The jet flew through the air, the only two inside. Baljeet was piloting while in the back. Katie was looking at her prosthetic arm. "Penny, for your thoughts," Baljeet asked. "You really want to pay that much?" Katie replied dryly, putting her hand in her lap. "One way or another, it's the end of our world," Baljeet pointed out. "Why bother holding on to money?" "Good point," Katie conceded in her head. "You know who I'm thinking about, Ball," Katie answered. "Danny Phantom," Baljeet suggested sarcastically. "Ha ha," Katie let out a dry humorless laugh. "No, I'm not thinking about Danny," though she'd forgotten how cute he was, even with that scraggly beard he'd started growing before everything went downhill. Baljeet nodded solemnly. He was a good man. "What about you? Do you miss Ginger?" Katie asked Baljeet. Instead of answering with words, pulled up his sleeve holding up his arms, giving Katie a good view of the words Ginger Hirano Jinder wrapping around his wrist. "Every day," he answered. Putting his arm down, he stood up, activating the autopilot. Standing up, he stepped toward the hatch. Katie followed after Baljeet pushed a button to open the hatch, then pushed a second button after opening a hidden panel. Self-destruct sequence initiated. "Age before beauty," Baljeet quipped, wind rushing through the open hatch. Katie let out a laugh. "Smart mouth, where'd you learn that from?" "The best teacher I ever had," Baljeet said, having a genuine smile on his face. Katie smiled back at him. "Yeah, you weren't such a lousy student yourself, Ball," Katie said, patting him on the shoulder before rushing past him out of the hatch and jumping into the open air. "Try to keep up, SQR, she called back. "Ha, bring it, old woman," Baljeet called, leaping out of the plane. The air rushing before them above the two Shagos robots swarmed the plane. Which would blow up in 3, 2, 1. The jet exploded before the robots could begin reciting the long-winded legal code they'd broken by intruding on the Great One's airspace. Katie changed in midair, rolling onto her feet. She landed in a crater behind her. Baljeet landed, having transformed his top-heavy gamma-powered form and ready for a fight. Their last fight. "Etrigan, you glorified guard dog, come out and fight," Katie yelled, clenching her fists tight. "I've got a score to settle with you for taking my arm." The only answer Katie got was palace turrets firing in her face. Katie didn't even flinch. They didn't even tickle. Katie looked back to Baljeet. "You want this one?" she asked. Baljeet shrugged. "Why not?" Stepping forward, he clapped his hands. The shockwave broke the turrets. They exploded like fireworks on the palace walls. After that, it was silent for a moment before he showed up in a pillar of fire. Out of the fire came Etrigan dressed in a Shagos jumpsuit, a glowing M in a circle on his forehead, some magic brand that controlled the demon keeping him as Shagos SLV. Etrigan snarled, not saying anything as he breathed out a torrent of fire. Katie blocked the fire blast with one arm, batting it aside. Baljeet flipped over, rushing at Etrigan, hitting him with a palm strike to the chin, followed by a punch to the face that sent him sliding back. Etrigan reached out, snatching Baljeet with his claws, taking him along for the ride. Katie rushed forward, leaping into the air. She freed Baljeet's hand before snatching Etrigan by the collar and slamming him face to the ground. Katie threw him away, growling furiously. In a moment, Etrigan was on his feet, cracking his neck with a stoic face before he transformed into a wave of fire rushing at Baljeet. Throwing a punch, Baljeet blocked the resulting shockwave, broke the sound barrier. Concrete and asphalt shattered, and was sent flying. A second punch from Etrigan and the gamma-green Indian man flew through the air, crashing into a wall. Etrigan held out a hand, and a condensed ball of fire formed in the middle of his palm. "No," Katie yelled, rushing at Etrigan, moving fast and intercepting the blast of burning fire. "Shago can take many things from me, my friends, my family, my mentor, the love of my life," Katie snarled, fire cascading over her and pushing her back. "But you won't make me live in a world for even a millisecond where my student died before me," she yelled, punching the fire. Katie and Etrigan charged at each other. The two began to exchange blows, punching faster and faster. Each punch furiously had enough force behind it to crush a tank, but they kept going. Katie continued, her eyes glowing furiously. She and Etrigan roared at each other. Katie's metal arm shattered into pieces, no longer able to keep up with the strain she was putting it under, but Katie kept punching and punching. She kept fighting. She barely noticed when Baljeet recovered and joined the fight. They didn't exchange words and didn't look at each other, they just knew the other was there, synchronizing their blows together effortlessly. They kept going. Together they pulled back their fists and punched Etrigan and tried to defend themselves with a shield of fire, but the two gamma-powered superheroes could break through. Etrigan was sent flying back, a flaming meteor breaking through the wall and bringing it down in a flaming explosion. Katie watched with a grin as fire spread to the palace, burning a tapestry emblazoned with Shago's face. Katie was breathing heavily. Her knees became heavy. Her heart wasn't just beating. It was thundering in her chest slowly. As Etrigan began to emerge from the fire, Katie began to fall to the ground. Finally collapsing like a puppet string being cut, Baljeet follows after her. Thanks, Baldash. Thanks for everything. Danny could hear the ground shaking under his boots. He could feel the heat from Etrigan's fire on the back of his neck. He could hear their roars. Until he couldn't. The quiet was worse than the noise. Danny was heading down a hidden corridor with Ben Kim, Penny, Bibi, Cece, Ron, his wife Sophie Rufus 3000, and Tucker. I don't like it either, Tucker said. Danny looked back at him. Dude, I've known you since kindergarten. Do you really think I can't figure out you're not comfortable with leaving someone else to fight? It feels wrong, was all Danny could say. It is, Tuck agreed, but we've got no other choice. Save the chit-chat for later. We don't have the monkey yet, Bibi said. And you won't be getting it either, Batman, Dr. Onimo said, his voice echoing through the underground passage. They were in a pair of yellow eyes watching from above before out leaped a 10-foot-tall teal cat person with blue tiger stripes with wild black hair with a long braid. Danny didn't know what it was, but if it wasn't an alien, then Danny was the starting pitcher for the New York Yankees. Ben, you're the alien expert. What's the species, and how can Onimo use it to waste us? Kim asked. It beats me. The Omnitrix isn't trying to scan it, so it's probably in the Omnitrix, Ben answered before looking at his old enemy. Like the new look Onimo. How's it feel to be Shago's bodyguard? Degrading and humiliating, but it has some perks, Onimo said, baring his fangs. With this alien body I've transferred my consciousness into, I'll finally destroy Ben Tennyson. Yeah, not going to happen, Onimo. Ben tapped the Omnitrix, changing into the green squid again. Seriously, brah, not this thing again, Ben complained in his surfer dude voice before his tentacles snapped out to the blasters on Ron's belt. He began blasting rapid-fire shots at Onimo, hitting him. And pinning him to a wall. Oh, so that's what this guy does, Ben said with a big grin, cool. Onimo quickly got up, his alien body tougher than it looked, pouncing at Ben before he could get hit. Cece jumps in, intercepting them. Go on, keep going, she says before activating her miraculous powers, Shade, making a dark dome that blocks Onimo's view of everyone. Go, I'll hold him off, Cece yelled out. The rest kept moving behind them. They heard fighting behind them, along with Onimo hissing like a cat. The rest of the resistance and the past heroes kept reaching a corridor where circus music started playing. Zomboso and Freakshow popped out. The two grinned. Oh look, the clowns are here, Bibi said, whatcha gonna do, pull a rabbit out of a hat? That's Magician's Bat BRT, Zomboso said, and don't worry, we've got plenty of party favors for you kiddies. Courtesy of the Joker, Freakshow said. The two tossed gas grenades, and green smoke began to fill the room. Joker venom, don't breathe it in, Bibi yelled. Everyone covered their mouths. Freakshow and Zomboso pulled out a pair of mallets and rushed at the temporarily incapacitated, all except for rushing forward with his jet pack. He shoulder-checked the two clowns, sending them flying. Why aren't you laughing? Freakshow asked. Tucker tapped his helmet. I've had an air filter in this thing since before I could drive, Freakshow, Tucker quipped. Pulling out a pair of blasters, he began to fire at the clowns. Freakshow was easy to hit, but Zomboso was much more agile than he looked, flipping around the shots before hitting Tucker with a boxing glove from a Jack-in-the-Box. Ben tapped the Omnitrix, turning into Terrapin and blowing away the Joker venom before flying at Zomboso, hitting him from the side and sending him flying and crashing through a wall. Right, Ben said, changing back, let's keep moving before we attract more attention. Too late for that, Ben, Bibi said, tapping a button on his wrist. Everyone that electrocuted everyone, knocking them to the floor. Danny tried to get up, but the current was just too strong. Why? He asked. Nothing personal, Danny, he said, tapping the button again, knocking the ghost boy out. Danny woke up with a groan. Looking around, he was floating in the air, his hands and ankles restrained with glowing blue chains. Looking around, the others were lined up restrained like he was in a throne room, green banners hanging from the wall, museum pieces like the Mona Lisa decorating the walls. Sitting on a golden throne, petting the time monkey in her lap like a cat out of a James Bond movie, was a woman who wasn't Shago. She was mostly in her 30s with pale skin, green eyes, a sickly yellow ring around the iris, black hair braided with gold. She wore a black sleeveless jumpsuit and a green and black cape around her shoulders. Maybe she was Shago's daughter or a clone who was watching the place while Shago was conquering Mars. Wow, plastic surgery technology has taken off in the future, Ben commented. Shago looks absolutely nothing like Shago. Ben, I don't think that's Shago, Penny replied, glaring at her brother. I can't believe you stabbed us all in the back like that. BB shrugged. What can I say? I've had an attitude adjustment, was all he said. They used the attitudinator on him? Penny was shocked at what they did to her little brother. He betrayed us, Ron said. It's not his fault, like when Ron went evil, Kim said to the other girl while Ron blinked, confused. I never went evil. Ron, don't you remember the convention of the attitudinator turning your trike into a laser catapult? Your cousin Sean being a BRT. I remember the convention you fought with Shago. There was some mutant alligator fighting nearby, and the attitude thing went off a few times, but it didn't hit me. It nearly got you, but you're Kim. You can dodge lasers in your sleep. But what if she didn't, Danny thought, looking at the smirking woman looking past the pale skin and the black hair, the evil confident smirk on her face, and the green eyes. The familiar green eyes. Ben connected the dots, too. No way. I was not aware of this, Rufus 3000 said quietly. Way yellow trout, the woman future Kim said, putting the time monkey on the armrest of her throne as she stood up. Gotta say, Danny, I'm surprised you figured it out so fast. You always were clueless, she mocked, eyeing him repeatedly. Cute, though. Sorry, you're way too old for me, Danny commented sarcastically, also, in a relationship with the love of my life and all. Ah, thanks, boo, Penny smiled before glaring at future Kim. How are you, evil Kim? Hold that thought, future Kim said, holding up a hand as Etrigan came in dragging the bodies of Katie and Baljeet, dropping them on the ground unceremoniously. Future Kim smirked, walking over. She pats Etrigan on the head like a dog. Good work, SLV. Etrigan snarled, his eyes glowing red. Were it not for this brand, it would have been you who burned at my hand. Then, lucky for me, you only burn who I tell you to burn, she said. Now get back to your post. The brand on Etrigan's forehead glowed brightly before he walked off. Animo, are you done playing with Midnight Leopard? Future Kim asked. A hollow screen appeared, a scratched and bruised Animo, smirking with his stolen alien body. It's done, the Black Panther. Miraculous. Is your great 1-inch? Animo answered, gritting his teeth when he said great one was holding up a piece of jewelry. Penny gasped, looking like she'd just been punched in the gut, while future Kim smirked. Good work, head to base, hunt down the last mole rats and web. Animo nodded. Future Kim smirked, turning off back to the screen. Now, where were we? When I get out of here, you're going to wish you'd never been born, Penny yelled, struggling against her chains. Future Kim rolled her eyes. Yeah, anyways, back to me, so you're wondering where Shago is. The thought crossed my mind, Tucker answered coldly. See, I was born after the convention. The attitudinator hit me, making me evil the next day. Shago found me and offered to show me the ropes to conquer the world so I could do anything. I agreed. With the time monkey, I'd blip in and out of the present with Shago. We built our plans and struck when the world was at its lowest. Virusmon, Danny guessed. Bingo, future Kim answered. After that, it was easy to take over the world. The heroes were weak, and a few were on my boss's payroll. I'd gotten Ron sent off on his retirement in Norway. Future Kim looked to Ron. Did you like the Bueno Nacho, Ron? I had it open just for you. I met Sophie there. Did you set that up too? Ron asked his wife, curious about that too. No, that happened all on you, Ron, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, Kim said. You're like Danny. You didn't have the confidence to believe girls could like you. Fair point. So, after being Shago's right hand for a while, things got boring. I was tired of not being on top of the pyramid, future Kim finished, so I rule of two her, future Kim smiled. I built a robot to keep up appearances. Future Kim sat back down on her throne, and now here I am, the ruler of the world. You might be wondering how I can exist since you changed the past trying to stop me but ended up making me, future Kim shrugged. Honestly, no clue, but hey, I ain't complaining, she said, looking at Danny and Ben. So what's the plan now, Kim? Kim asked her evil doppelganger. Easy, I'm going to give you all an attitude adjustment. Tucker, Penny, Ron the mole rats, and my past self can be new super soldiers I send to conquer Mars. Danny and Ben, well, I've got plans for them, she said. After all, every queen needs a king or two. Did she just say what I think she just said? Danny said. Yeah, that's what she definitely said, Ben said with the same gulp. Ah, what's the matter, boys? Don't you want me to be your queen? Kim asked with a devious smile. 1. We are in relationships with 2 wonderful girls, Ben started. 2. We are way too young for you, so hard pass, Danny added. And 3. We will never cheat on our girlfriends, both said in unison. Kim and Penny were happy that their boyfriend wouldn't cheat on them, especially from a future version of one of them. Also, if I had a quarter for every evil lady that wants me for their king, I would have 4 quarters, Ben said. You had this happen to you 4 times, Ben? Danny asked. Well there, Luma, Altia, and Camille Leon, Ben mentioned. Danny had a shiver go up his spine about Camille Leon's name. Don't remind me, Danny had a bad experience with the face-changing villainess. They're minors. That is so sick and wrong, Ron cried out. Evil Kim ignores future Ron and smiles at Danny and Ben. The 2 heroes shivered from the look that the future Kim was giving them. Not a problem, Evil Kim snapped her fingers. A robot brought out a machine that looked like a high-tech version of that baby toy where you stacked rings on each other. With another snap of her fingers, the robot blasted future Kim surrounding her in orange light. When it faded, future Kim was the same age as regular Kim. You like, she said with a sultry look on her face. It's one of Draken's inventions, knowing that idiot. It's a miracle it works, she sneered when she said Draken's name as she got up from her throne, putting a hand on Danny's cheek. We'll need to change a few things. Hit you with the attitudinator for one thing, then implant a modulator to keep you from going all dark Danny on me and destroying my planet. Not going to happen and never going to happen, Danny sneered, moving his head away from future Kim, not wanting anything to do with her. You'll think to tune when I'm done with you, lover boy. Kim came close to Danny's face, about to kiss him. This was interrupted by the robot that caused Draken's aging machine to explode, surprising everyone except Ron for some reason. Took you long enough, Rufus, Ron called out. Rufus? Danny wondered. Stepping out of the wreckage of the robot, a wrinkly naked mole rat stepped out with a shuriken in his paws. Sorry, he said, throwing a shuriken. It arced through the air, breaking everyone's restraints. Rufus, both Kims said, the present one sounding happy while the future one sounded shocked before turning on BB, furious. You told me he was dead. Ron told everyone he was. BB defended himself. The ninja star turned back into the katana he'd been holding earlier. You're not the only one who can plant a spy in someone's ranks, KP, he said. Danny needed to figure out what ticked future Kim off more, she got tricked, or she got tricked by Ron and Rufus. With a snap of her fingers, more robots, one who looked like Shago, along with evilized versions of superheroes. Some Danny recognized either because he worked with them or saw them on TV or the internet, others he had yet to learn who they were, the biggest problem being Etrigan. Get the time, monkey, Danny shouted, going ghost. He rushed for the monkey only to get backhanded by Etrigan, sent flying up through the air, crashing into a wall. Yeah, that really hurt. Phasing out of the wall, Danny fired Ice Blast after Ice Blast at Etrigan, coating him in ice. His eyes glowing red, fire surged off his body, shattering the ice. Danny and Etrigan closed the difference between each other, throwing a powerful punch, their fists colliding, shaking the room. Okay, yeah, that really hurt. Katie and Baljeet fought this guy. Etrigan was breathing heavily. He might have won, but Katie hadn't made it easy for him. That was the good news. The bad news, Danny thought, dodging a stream of fire. He was still pretty powerful. It's not like Danny could make him transform back into a person. Could he? Danny turned invisible, flying around Etrigan before diving at him, turning intangible and overshadowing him. Danny needed to hurry, Etrigan was trying to push him out. Come the form of man, rest the demon Etrigan, Danny said. Fire spun around him, pushing Danny out. Etrigan transformed into his place as a middle-aged redhead man with a white streak in his hair. He smiled gratefully before he vanished in a poof of smoke. You could have stayed and helped, Danny grumbled before looking around. The fighting was crazy. The good guys were outnumbered, and the time monkey was just there. Danny obviously rushed for it before he could get his hands on it. A flash of green hit him in the face, the sting of his ectoranium sending him sliding back. Do you have any idea how long it took me to catch him the first time? Future Kim snarled hysterically. I'm not going to let you take away my world. Green knuckles on her fists probably made of ectoranium. Yeah, I don't really care, Future Kim hissed, rushing at him. Danny dodged, not letting himself get hit by the ectoranium knuckles again. Danny knew that in a regular fight, Kim was the better martial artist, and this version of Kim had 20 extra years of experience than the Kim he was used to sparring with. But he had powers, and she was ticked off because Danny had freed her favorite guard dog, and an angry opponent was a stupid opponent. Sure, it wasn't fair, but with the fate of the world on the line, Danny wasn't going to care too much about fighting fair. Future Kim flipped at him, throwing wild blows without aiming. Danny bobbed and weaved using speeds he ordinarily wouldn't when sparring with Kim. Danny aimed at the floor under her feet, covering it in ice. She slipped enough for Danny to hit her with an uppercut that sent her flying and crashing into her throne. Around him, the other bad guys and robots were beaten while Penny punched BB in the face and knocked him to the ground. My girlfriend just knocked out Batman, Danny thought, falling in love with this woman all over again. Man, that's hot. Danny and the others surrounded future Kim. Give it up, Kim. Hand over the time monkey. Instead of looking defeated, future Kim looked like she had a screw loose. She just kept laughing and standing up and holding the time monkey. If I can't have the world, then no one can, she can, tossing the time monkey to the ground, the statue shattering into a million pieces. No, Penny shouted, are you a crazy woman? You don't know what'll happen. No, and I don't really care either, future Kim laughed madly as a red portal emerged from the shattered time monkey swirling high above their head. Then there was a flash of light blinding everyone. Danny and Penny were walking back to Penny's house after a mostly nice date, with the exception of Cupid getting a bunch of guys to go love crazy for Penny. Danny was in a lousy mood for a little bit after dealing with the pink-haired fairy, but Penny could cheer Danny up pretty quickly with some kisses. So, a good date? Danny asked. Penny nodded. The best, she answered, leaning up and giving him a kiss on the lips. Danny smiled, looping his arms around her waist and pulling her in close. The young couple enjoyed their romantic moment until it got interrupted by Danny getting a massive headache. Danny pulled away. Penny looked like she had a headache too, but it went away as quickly as it started. Man, that was weird, Penny said. Yeah, Danny agreed, wondering what had just happened. Before he shrugged, whatever it was over. All that mattered right now was that he was here with his girlfriend. The two shared another quick kiss before he walked her home. Meanwhile in Bellwood, Kim and Ben were at Café des Fleurs, where they were dancing to a slow dance. Ben, I didn't know you knew how to dance? Kim was surprised Ben was able to dance. Well, Gwen taught me, and I decided to show you something I can do that I don't do much, Ben said. Well, it caught me off guard, Kim smiled. Happy Valentine's Day, Kim, Ben told her. Happy Valentine's Day, Ben. I love you, Kim said. Ben's heart began to beat rapidly after what Kim told him. His cheeks flushed red, and he felt like he was on top of the world, no the universe. I love you too, Kim, he said back to her. For too long, the whelp had beaten him. Skulker, the Ghost Zone's greatest hunter, thanks to 3 years of being defeated by the whelp, reputation had been dragged through the mud while his had skyrocketed, having beaten ghosts that Skulker wouldn't have dreamed of fighting. Walker Prince Aragon Pariah Dark Undergrowth Vortex Nocturne, even his former employer Plasmius, had been defeated by the whelp. But no longer. The hunt would be over, and Skulker would hang the ghost head's pelt at the foot of his bed with his ultimate weapon. Smythe, is it ready yet? Skulker demanded of the human flunky working on his weapon. Alastair Smythe used to be a student at Horizon High, one of the most prestigious schools in New York City, until it was discovered that he was a member of Adrian Toombs' Goblin Gang and his involvement with his father Spencer Smythe's Spider Slayer program. Now he was a fugitive, that the successor to Plasmius's underworld empire, the King and Queen offered protection from the police and Spider-Man. Smythe typed away at a computer for a moment before he stepped away. It's done, he said, the arrogant boy trying his best not to sneer at Skulker. And barely succeeding. Good work, Skulker said, inspecting the weapon and making sure Smythe hadn't added anything to backstab the hunter. Of course, it is the Smythes who are the best when it comes to robotics, Smythe said arrogantly. Says the teen fugitive who's here because he and his daddy's robots failed to slay Spider-Man, Skulker mocked, ignoring Smythe seething behind him as he accessed various databases looking for a moment of weakness where the whelp would be isolated from his friends and allies. Skulker grinned as he found something. Looks like I'm going to a wedding. Danny double-checked his reflection in his rearview mirror, making sure his tie was straight. Seeing it was good, he got out of his car with a birthday present for his 16th birthday, locking it behind him. He grinned, stepping towards the church. Heading inside, Danny looked around for his girlfriend, finding Penny with her back towards him in a purple dress that went past her knees and her hair out of its usual pigtails flowing down her back, talking to her cousin Chanel. Danny smiled, walking over and tapping Penny on the shoulder. Penny turned, smiling, when she saw him. Hey boo, she greeted, kissing him on the cheek. Danny grinned, kissing her back. Hey, you look amazing. Penny smiled. You don't look so bad yourself. Well, aren't the two of you a sweet couple, Chanel said, smiling. Nice to see you again, Danny. The two had met once or twice before. You too, Danny said, so you're here alone. Yes, my boyfriend couldn't get off work and come with, Chanel explained. Penny laughed a little bit. Look at you dating a boy with a job, Penny said. The girl who used to get bored if things weren't rich enough. Chanel shrugged. What can I say? I've grown up unlike your friend Lacey Aniga, she said. Penny and Danny frowned at the mention of Swampy. We're not friends, Penny replied, still frowning. Right, sorry, Chanel said. Before the conversation could continue, music began to play. People began to head to their seats. Danny sat down beside Penny in the pew with the couple were Penny's parents, Suga's mama, Uncle Bobby and Oscar's cousin Ray Ray Sr., his wife Bunetta, and their son Simone in his smaller form. Simone was a mutant who had the power to alter his size, being the size of a full-grown man when he was just a 9-month-old baby. Danny had reached out to the Xavier's Institute, which taught Simone how to control and deactivate his powers. Which was a relief. It'd be cramped if Simone were bigger right now. Danny watched Penny's cousin Ray Ray Jr. walk down the aisle after his groomsmen. His parents were crying when their son stepped onto the pew. Next came the bridesmaids. Danny raised an eyebrow when he noticed one of his blind dates from the service. Musa was one of them. Didn't expect to see her here, Danny thought, the fairy noticing him, seeming just as surprised to see him too. Guess she didn't expect to see me either. The bridal march began to play. Danny, and everyone else stood up when the bride came in walking with her dad. Danny looked at Penny briefly. He imagined what Penny would look like on their wedding day. Whoa, where did that come from, Danny thought, blushing before he sat down. It was way too soon to be thinking about getting married. They still needed to finish high school. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here to witness the union of Raymond Proud Jr. and Mary Bromfield. If anyone has objections to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace. Danny's ghost sense chose now of all times to go off. Seriously now, Danny thought before the church doors were blown away. Stepping through was the exoskeleton with a dark gray paint job. Piloting it was Skulker. Oh, this wasn't good. I don't have any objection to the couple, but I object to the whelp still breathing, Skulker said, holding up his arm and charging the ectoskeleton's weapons. Danny rushed out of his seat, going ghost. He flew forward, punching Skulker's arm. The blast fired high up out of the way of any of the wedding guests. With his free arm, Skulker punched Danny, sending him flying back through the air and the church-stained glass window. Danny shook any pieces of colored glass off of his costume. Skulker hit pretty hard, boosted with the exoskeleton. It had been a long time since Skulker had been more than just a pest for Danny to deal with. Danny needed to call Tucker, but where was his phone? Looking for this whelp, Skulker said, holding up Danny's phone and crushing it in his hands. Now I know how Tucker feels, Danny grumbled before Skulker was on top of him, hitting him with his fists together, sending him crashing like a meteor toward the ground. Acting quickly, Danny turned intangible through the parking lot into the sewer beneath. Danny barely had the time to catch his breath, not that he wanted to in a sewer, before Skulker tore through the concrete, hitting him with a laser blast that sent Danny skidding across the surface of the sewage. Danny's eyes glowed blue as he used his ice powers. Ice formed and spread over the pipes, the concrete, the sewage, and the legs of the exoskeleton pinning Skulker. He was holding out his hand. It glowed blue as he clenched his fist. The ice shot up, cracking, rising, and reshaping, becoming spikes. Pinning the massive weapon and trying to pierce through the hull. Skulker smirked. Nice try, whelp. Skulker shook off the ice easily. Panels on the shoulders opened, missiles popped out. But this time, the hunter will finally catch the prey. Skulker launched the missiles. Danny made a ghost shield around the missiles containing the explosives before he rushed forward, hitting Skulker with an uppercut that sent Skulker airborne. Danny rushed after him. Skulker straightened out, preparing to throw a punch. Danny threw 1-2 shockwaves and shook his fist before he was sent flying back. Skulker rushed forward, pinning Danny underneath his foot before pulling out a glowing green Bowie knife. Okay, then the exoskeleton-sized knife is redundant, Danny commented. All the other weapons in the suit, and you installed a giant knife. I like it, Skulker argued. Finishing you off with a laser would be too quick. I want to savor the end of this hunt. Skulker held the knife over his head. Finally, your pelt will hang at the foot of my bed. Wow, and I thought my enemies were messed up, someone else quipped, who wasn't Danny, before a thunder crash followed a red blur that punched Skulker, sending him flying, flinging through the parking lot and crashing into a lamppost. Skulker pushed himself off the lamppost, raising an eyebrow. Aren't you supposed to be in New York? Danny got on his feet, seeing he wasn't expecting one of the Justice League heavy hitters, Captain Thunder, here, but he wasn't complaining. You're thinking of a different superhero with a lightning bolt on their costume, and their name starts with the Captain, Captain Thunder quipped with a grin on his face. You're not the first bad guy to mix us up. Captain Thunder punched his palm. Lightning crackled over his fist up to his elbow, a ticked-off look on his face for a second. Why don't you save the both of us the trouble and give up? It'll be a lot less painful for you. I think you've got it backward, Skulker said, twisting the knife in his hand and pointing it toward Captain Thunder and Danny. You're the one who's going to be dealing with pain in the near future. With the push of a button, chest panels opened up, shooting green fire toward the two heroes. Danny stepped forward, pulling up a shield before the flames could die. Skulker rocketed forward with a punch. Captain Thunder caught it, pushing him back while Danny rushed forward, hitting Skulker with a punch and knocking him into the air. Captain Thunder followed up with an electrically charged punch, sending Skulker rocketing up through the air. Danny and Captain Thunder flew after him. Skulker straightened out, firing a fully powered laser blast at Captain Thunder. The red-wearing Justice Leaguer crossed his arms, blocking the blast. Though it was taking a lot out of him, Skulker threw the knife at Danny, aiming for his head while he kept blasting Captain Thunder. A wave of sound intercepted the knife, sending it off course, plummeting towards the ground. Musa, whose fairy form was a lot more sparkly with much bigger wings than when they'd gone out 3 years ago, flew up next to him. Danny nodded thankfully. Thanks for the save. No problem, Musa replied. Any idea how to beat this guy? Yeah, Danny had one. And he could do it since there was no chance of someone getting hurt. Your magic works on all kinds of sounds, right? Musa nodded, not seeing where his plan was going before realization crossed her face. Start wailing, Danny. I'll be your backup singer, she quipped. Not going to happen, whelp, Skulker shouted with a snarl, ready to rush in and attack, but Captain Thunder grabbed him from behind, pinning his arms to the side. Do it now. Danny needed clarification on this. The ghostly wail was powerful. He didn't want to hurt Captain Thunder. It's cool, man. I've got the endurance of an atlas. I can take it, Captain Thunder reassured him. Just do it quick. Danny nodded. Getting ready, he unleashed the ghostly wail. Musa fired her magic into the wail. The haunting waste glowed pink. They became louder, more echoing. And way more destructive. Pieces of the exoskeleton peeled off, circuitry overloaded the dome, cracked, and broke apart. The upgraded exoskeleton broke apart in 20 seconds. Which was good. The strain of the enhanced wail was harder to keep up than usual. Musa looked like she was struggling to do it, too. Skulker's usual armor was all that was left when Danny stopped. Before he could try getting away, Danny pulled out the Fenton thermos, trapping the hunter inside. Yeesh, and I thought Black Canary's powers were loud. Captain Thunder rubbed his ear, floating over as he held out a hand. If you don't mind, I'll take that thermos, Danny. Why? Danny asked. Skulker got his hands on a military-grade battle suit very similar to the Smythes and their Spider Slayers in the League, and I have been investigating if there's a connection. We want to find out. Danny nodded. That made sense. Good luck getting anything out of him. Skulker's tough. Batman will be the one interrogating him, Captain Thunder said. We won't need luck. And now Danny almost felt bad for Skulker. Keyword almost. It was nice meeting you, dannyphantom. I mean, random flying girl I've never met, Captain Thunder said before he flew off with a sonic boom. Danny briefly sent a look over to Musa. He considered asking how she knew a big-time member of the Justice League, but he'd respect her privacy. Besides, they had a wedding to get back to. You may kiss the bride, the priest said as Ray and his new wife Mary kissed Danny, and the other wedding guests stood up and applauded. Thankfully the ceremony after Danny came back went off without a hitch. The newlyweds walked down the aisle together. Mary tossed the bouquet behind her back. It landed in Penny's arms. Penny and Danny blushed as she quickly handed the flowers to Trudy. Suga Mama smiled. Guess we should start preparing for your wedding, shouldn't we? She commented, making Danny and Penny blush even more. Suga Mama, they're too young, Trudy said. Yeah, Mama, there's no way Penny's allowed to say I do without a college degree, and only if it's to Danny. He's the only boy she's dated that's good enough, Oscar added, having mellowed out his rules a lot more from before. Danny and Penny continued to blush. Wow, baby bro, your rules about Penny are way more mellow than they used to be, Bobby said. Of course, when the time comes, kids, I'll be the wedding singer. At this point, their faces were redder than Captain Thunder's costume. All right, enough teasing. Let's get to that reception, Suga's mama said, walking past, patting Danny on the shoulder, and giving Penny a kiss on the cheek as she walked down the aisle. Danny and Penny followed after her. The thoughts of Penny marrying him played over and over in his head, and a smile on his face the entire time. Happy birthday to you, Uoy, everyone at Danny's kitchen table sang as Tucker pushed the cupcake cake closer to Sam, a look of disgust on his face as he touched the tofu pastry with black icing and 18 candles on it. Sam waved a hand over the candle. The flames flew up, swirling around her fingers before being absorbed into her skin. Everyone cheered while Sam took the candle out, biting half of the cupcake in one bite, a grin on her face. And now for the not vegetarian cake, Danny's mom said, grabbing a cake from the counter, much to Tucker's relief. "Oh, come on, Tucker, you're worse than the lunch lady," Sam snarked. "I wonder if you two are related." "Don't even joke about that," Tucker said, looking aghast. "You know Sam might be right." "Didn't you say the lunch lady looked like your grandma?" Danny asked, teasing Tucker more. The techno-geek looked horrified. Nope, no way. "Is there a chance anywhere in the multiverse I'm related to Box Lunch?" Tucker said, waving his arms out in front of him. "Who's Box Lunch?" Penny asked innocently, making Teen Phantom flinch. Sam and Tucker looked at Danny silently, asking Danny to shake his head. He'd tell Penny that later today was supposed to be a party. "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Fenton, didn't you mention something about getting a college named after you?" Sam asked, changing the subject. "That's right," Danny's dad cheered happily. "The city council and the college board, in honor of Danny's boys' superheroics, have decided to rename the college from Hecht University to Fenton University," Dad boasted, clapping. "Danny is on the back." After his mom hugged Danny and Penny are going to go there next year, she cheered excitedly. Danny smiled, looking at his girlfriend, who smiled back. "What about you two? Are you guys staying local for college?" "Keep the whole team together," Danny asked, petting her cat, Maggie. "Yeah, it's not the original name change, but the only thing the walking furball would listen to wasn't Maddie. I've got Stark internship, but that's only in the summer. The rest of the year, I'm going to be at Empire State University," Tucker said with a grin. "What about you, Sam?" "I'm deferring to backpack through Asia for a year and see Thailand, Nepal, and Bhutan." "Your travel plans sound like the lyrics to a song," Danny quipped. "Then I'm going to study environmental sciences at Gimmelsthump University in Drusselstein," Sam continued after rolling her eyes at Danny's quip. "Mom and Dad aren't happy saying college is pointless since we already have money to live off of. Nana said that just because you don't contribute to society doesn't mean spreading the laziness to me." "The more I hear about your parents, the more I wonder if your dad is adopted," Dad said before getting an elbow from Mom. "Did I say that out loud?" "Yeah, you did, Mr. Fenton, and no offense taken," Sam said, pulling out her phone when it buzzed. "Speaking of which, I've got to suffer through a birthday dinner with them. $50. They try to put her in a pink dress," Danny whispered to Penny. "No bet," Penny whispered back. "I heard that too," Sam said when she left out the door. "Bye. Later, Sam." The next day, Danny woke up to his phone buzzing over and over again, groaning. Danny pulled his arm out from under the covers. Someone had better be hurt dead or on fire, Danny grumbled sleepily. The box ghost had unleashed all the animals at the zoo to try and destroy him. It had taken 3 hours after stuffing him into a thermos to get every animal back to their enclosure. "There's a warrant out for Sam's arrest," Tucker yelled through the speaker when he answered. "What?" Danny shouted, leaping up out of bed. "That's crazy. It's all over the news. According to this, Sam used her mutant powers to assault some guy named Dominic Loadman at the birthday party her parents made her go to. He's apparently in the hospital." "Okay, calm down. Let's call Sam. We'll get her side of the story and figure out what really happened." "I've tried, but she's not answering. I've tried calling Henry, Buzz and Luke, but they're not picking up either." Okay, that was a little concerning, but Danny knew Sam wouldn't put some guy in the hospital. "I'm going to her house. Maybe I can get some answers from her parents," Danny said, going ghost and flying toward Sam's house. Walking up the steps, he frowned when he saw anti-mutant slurs graffitied over the door. Danny didn't even get the chance to knock before the door was thrown open, and Sam's parents looked at him furiously. "Mr. and Mrs. Manson, I came looking for Sam. Is she here?" "Why, hoping to finish the job you started, ruining our daughter's life," Mrs. Manson sneered at him. "If looks could kill, Danny would be a full ghost right now." "What do you mean ruin Sam's life?" "I came to help her. You're the reason Samantha is in this mess with the law. It's your revenge after she rightfully rejected you," Mr. Manson shouted. "You couldn't let Sam be happy, you had to hurt Reginald Loadman's boy and pin your heinous crime on Sam." Danny blinked. What the heck were they talking about? "I have a girlfriend. I didn't do anything to this Loadman guy heck before this morning. I had no idea he existed," Danny shouted. "Also, even if I did have feelings for Sam and she turned me down, I wouldn't attack someone else." "Oh, for the love of Pete." Danny heard Sam's grandma Ida shout, "Jeremy, Pamela, stop harassing the poor boy and let him in." "But mother, this is all his fault," Mr. Manson argued. "Danny would never do such a thing to Sam," Grandma Ida said, having come to the door. "I've known Danny since he was as tall as my knee. He doesn't have it in him to be this cruel," she said. "Finally, an adult with common sense." "Come in, Danny," Grandma Ida said sweetly. Danny nodded, stepping inside from his peripheral vision. Danny noticed Sam's mom about to say something. Remember whose name is on the deed for this house and all the bank accounts before you open your trap, Pamela, Grandma Ida warned her daughter-in-law coldly. Grandma Ida led Danny into the kitchen, shaking her head and touching her temples. Oh, this is a mess. Can you tell me what exactly happened when I last saw Sam? She was coming to some fancy birthday dinner her parents set up, and now she's called a fugitive. I told them it was a stupid idea. I told them it was beyond idiotic, a waste of time, and I wanted nothing to do with it, Grandma Ida explained. You probably heard last night that Sam's parents aren't too happy that she plans to attend college. Yeah, I heard, Danny agreed. What else happened? You know Sammy had a crush on you back in your freshman year, right? Grandma Ida asked. Danny nodded. Yeah, he knew that he had a crush in the back of his head for Sam, too. But then he met Penny, and his crush on Sam died. Well, Sam's parents got it into their heads that you confessed your feelings, and she rejected you, thinking that she didn't see you as were only good enough to be a friend but not a boyfriend, so to help her, they put together a party to help Sam find a boyfriend, someone Sam would forget her plans for and settle down with. Danny could see it now. Sam was alone in a room with many snobby rich kids who thought they could get her to date or marry them. I'm guessing this Donovan guy was one of them. He could have been. I went to my house in Lake Erie for the night. I didn't want to see their plans crash and burn. I drove home when I saw on the news that the police were looking for Sam, Grandma Ida explained. Do you know which hospital this guy should stay in? Danny asked Grandma. Ida shook her head. The news didn't say. All they said was he was receiving treatment in the hospital. Danny frowned. That was weird. Shouldn't the news have mentioned where he was getting treatment if it was so serious? Something wasn't right about this. Thanks, Mrs. Manson, Danny said. Danny, you're practically 18. Call me Ida. You've been telling me to call you Ida since I was 5, Danny quipped. And you still aren't doing it. Aren't you superhero types supposed to listen to your elders? She quipped back. Danny left through the back door, not wanting to run into the other two Mansons. Pulling out his phone, he called Tucker. Tuck, it's me. Can you hack into all the hospitals in the city to find where this loadman guy's staying? Danny asked. Dude gives me a challenge, Tucker answered. Danny heard the sound of a keyboard clicking. Done. He's at Amity General, room 394, under police protection. Danny thanked Tucker and flew off towards Amity General. When he got there, there were police cars in the parking lot. Danny turned invisible, slipping past the cops outside the door. Danny phased into the room, finding a guy with his face and head completely bandaged in the hospital bed. In a chair, there was an older man, probably his dad. It's going to be all right, Donovan, everything's going to be all right, he whispered sadly, holding his son's hand before he left the room. Once Danny was alone with Donovan, Danny turned visible. Donovan Loadman, we need to talk. Donovan jumped out of bed when he saw Danny. Literally. He threw a pillow at Danny, hitting him in the face, and then broke off into a run, bolting out of the room. Danny was so stupefied that it took him a second to break into a run, following after the guy. For someone who was supposed to be in critical condition, he sure could run fast for an ordinary guy without powers. But Danny was different from all the other guys using his powers. He quickly caught up to Donovan and pinned him against a wall. What's going on here? Donovan's dad demanded, furious, flanked by two officers. That's what I'd like to find out, Danny said, ripping off the bandages to show an ordinary undamaged face. You don't look hurt to me, Donovan, Danny said, looking angry. That's not Donovan, Donovan's dad said. What's going on here? Where exactly is my son? That's what we'd like to know too, the police said, looking upset but not as upset as Danny. Talk, Danny said sternly. The guy nodded. I'm an actor. Mr. Loadman hired me for a job. All I had to do was lay in a bed and pretend to be wounded. I figured it was some online prank or something, the actor explained quickly. A prank? It's not a prank that my friend is being wanted for something she didn't do. Danny's eyes glowed green. He'd used his ghost powers to get payback on Dash, but he never went this far as framing Dash for a crime. He didn't commit. It sounded like something Vlad would have done. I would like to know where exactly my son is, Mr. Loadman said, looking furious, because I'm appalled and horrified with his actions. We'd like to know, too, the officer said. I don't know. He contacts me through texts. I never actually met the guy in person, the actor said. Danny took his phone, handing the actor to the police while he called Tucker. You wanted a challenge, Tuck. I want you to trace the number of the baby Fruit Loop who framed Sam, he growled angrily. With pleasure, Tucker said angrily. In under a minute, Tucker had an address to a luxury hotel in Polterhates. He was checked in under the name Richard Rich. Mr. Fenton, Mr. Loadman said, looking very upset, I want to apologize for what my son has done to your friend. Danny felt bad for the guy. He looked genuinely upset, thinking his kid was in the hospital, all to find out it was faked. Apology accepted. Could you get the charges dropped against my friend wherever she is? Of course, Mr. Loadman said. I'll also inform the media of the truth of this matter. Danny nodded appreciatively before he went hunting for a rich creep. It was pretty easy to find Donovan Loadman. After that, the guy lounged in a hot tub on his balcony when Danny landed. He screamed like a little girl trying to run but fell out of his hot tub, landing pathetically face-first on the balcony. Don't hurt me, please don't hurt me. I've got money to pay you with, Donovan whined, begging on his knees. I'll pay you double to hurt someone else like this girl who dared to reject me last night, Samantha Manson, Donovan said. Danny intentionally made his glow green with fury, making Donovan scream, backing up against a wall. You did all of this. You faked being in the hospital and framed my best friend because she rejected you. She should be thankful I even attended her birthday party. Her family has only been wealthy for a few generations. My family's wealth goes back hundreds of years, but she's attractive, so I was willing to marry her despite the embarrassment of her being descended from peasants. All I had to do was get her to listen to reason. Danny snarled, not liking the sound of that, grabbing the lying little toad by the neck and holding him against the wall. What do you mean to get her to listen? Donovan looked ready to pee himself. She turned down my proposal to me, a member of the Loadman family, and tried to walk away from me. I grabbed her to make her change her mind, Donovan choked out. I wouldn't have done anything permanent, but she dares to hit me in the face. Danny took off his hand still around Donovan's throat, the only thing keeping him in the air as the spoiled little toad peed himself, staining his expensive swimsuit yellow. Listen to me very carefully. The cops are already on their way, and you'll plead guilty to everyone who asks if you get out of prison. If you even look at someone the wrong way, I'll find out, and it'll be the last thing you ever do, Danny promised. I promise, please just let me live, he begged, crying hysterically and screaming at the top of his lungs. Danny was very tempted just to drop him. Danny lowered himself story by story, dropping the spoiled little toad at the feet of the police, who had just pulled up. Danny watched Toadman be put in the back of the car before he flew off. It had been a long day, and he still had no idea where Sam was. The plan is to go to Fenton Works, get everyone, and find Sam, Danny, his parents, Tucker, and Sam. Wait, hold on, Sam. There she was, sitting on his porch. Hey, she greeted. Sam, where have you been? No one's seen you all day. After my parents' party, Nana sent a car for me. I stayed with her at Lake Erie, then, when I saw the news, she left, saying she'd fix everything. Danny grabbed me when the news said the police no longer wanted me, Sam explained. Danny nodded, sitting down next to her. I'm just glad you're okay. I am thanks to you, Danny, Sam said. Hey, if it weren't for you, Sam, I'd either be dragging food or got wasted by Vlad in Colorado. We're even, Danny said before yawning. Go get some sleep, Danny. I can make it home on my own, Sam said, giving him a brief hug before heading home. Danny headed inside. Unaware of Sharktopus, the Nylok watched them both through a small portal with eyes full of hate before it closed. Danny yelled as he was tossed into a wall, landing with a crash. Go on a college tour. Jazz said meet your professors. Jazz said to check out a class or two, Danny grumbled, pulling himself out from a wall and looking at Spectra. His enemy, not the blind date. Man, that must lead to mix-ups in universes where Danny had gone out with the purple-haired ghostly beauty. Aren't you a little old for college, Spectra? Danny quipped, flying in. He threw a punch at the worst teacher. Danny had batted away his punch, hitting him with a kick. Not for long, Danny, Spectra said, throwing a kick at his stomach. Danny blocked it, but the force was enough to send him flying back through the sky. Look around you, Danny. All these students down there. Worries, anxieties, and fears about the future are like an all-you-can-eat buffet. You must really be a fan of those since I added my dad's DNA to your new body, Danny quipped. But hey, on the bright side, you're not covered in snot anymore. Spectra got annoyed by this. Funny still using quips to hide your raging insecurities, she said before Danny's ghost sense went off. Bertrand phased out of the ground in the form of a decaying anaconda, wrapping his tail around Danny, throwing him into a statue of. Well, Danny didn't know who, but he must be important if he had his own statue. Before Danny could get up, Bertrand sprayed some noxious green goo, pinning him in the rubble and statue pieces. Spectra held up a hand. With all the misery I'll get from turning you into a smear on the pavement, we'll be young for 1,000 years, maybe longer. I'll make sure to pay a little visit to your girlfriend after. Leave him alone. Danny, Bertrand and Spectra all looked to see a boy Danny's age with dark skin and close-cropped hair in a soccer jersey for a country Danny didn't know with jeans and sneakers. "Dude, get out of here," Danny said. "No, stay. The more miserable, the better," Spectra said. Bertrand nodded, still in his python form, and lunges forward, flying at the new guy. Danny, Spectra and Bertrand were all shocked when rings passed over the guy transforming into a ghost with the head of a lion, white fur, and a green mane wearing a black outfit with white trim, pulled his fist back, and threw a punch, hitting Bertrand in the face before he pulled out a Fenton portal gun, pulling the trigger, hitting Bertrand in the face, pulling him into a portal. "What just happened?" Spectra asked. Danny's eyes glowed blue as he froze the goop off of him. Breaking free, he pulled out a thermos. "I don't know, but I'm not complaining," he quipped, trapping Spectra in the thermos before looking at the guy. "Another guy with ghost powers. I really hope this isn't more multiverse stuff." "So, where'd you get one of my parents' inventions?" "Ghost hunting convention," the guy answered. "I paid for it, I promise." "I believe you want to get a burger." "Sure." The two were sitting on the roof of the Nasty Burger. "This isn't McDowell's, but wow, it is very good," he said quickly, finishing off his burger. "So, what's your story? How'd you get ghost powers?" "Okay, let me take this from the top. My name is Jaffe Earl Jones, and for the past 6 months, I've been Zamunda's only ghost superhero, the White Lion. I got my powers when Dash." "What are you doing?" Danny asked, interrupting Jaffe. "What do you mean?" Jaffe asked. "Isn't this how superheroes are supposed to introduce themselves to each other? I saw it in a movie." "No, not really," Danny answered. Jaffe looked embarrassed for a second. That's what I get for getting tips from Hollywood movies," Jaffe said. "Anyway, I got my powers when I stumbled upon scientists trying to combine animal DNA with ectoplasm to create ghost superheroes. I stopped them, I stopped other ghosts and saved my city. My pants fell down in public a lot until I learned to get my intangibility under control." "I can relate," Danny said. "And now I'm here doing a college tour and end up running into my inspiration for being a hero in the middle of a ghost fight," Jaffe said, smiling. "I inspired you." "Wow, I'm flattered," Danny said. "You're Danny Phantom. You've saved the world like how many times?" "Of course, you inspired people," Jaffe said, standing up and transforming. "Nice meeting you, Danny Phantom," Jaffe waved, smiling before he flew off. Danny smiled. "You too. So you see, the sun, that's what we've been working on," Jack explained to his son. "Considering you rely on your ghost powers and barely use the morpher, it's vital for it to succeed that someone else takes on the mantle of the red phantom morphed along with the green and blue morphs. That'd make the process go even faster." Danny sat there silently as he processed what his parents explained to him because, man, it was a lot. But it was for a good cause. So with ease, Danny clicked off the red phantom morpher from his wrist, handing it to his mom, who put it in a case. "So, do you have someone in mind to take up the morphers?" Danny asked. "Jazz isn't one of them? Is it?" Danny imagined how much pain Danny would be in with Jazz's aim combined with the power of the morphing grid. "No, Jazz is busy at school," Maddie answered, "and we're working on finding proper candidates. We'll brief them when they've been selected." Danny nodded. As long as someone like Dash wasn't considered eligible to be a Power Ranger, he wouldn't complain. For weeks later. "This isn't how I hoped my day would go," Danny complained, annoyed, as he tried to keep the jaws of a metal T-Rex from chomping down and turning Danny into a dino snack. "Where did you even get a mechanical T-Rex?" Danny asked, the reason he was stuck being Dino Dental Floss Technus. "Foolish ghost child, you'd be surprised what I, Technus, and everyone else can find on the internet," Technus explained. "Speaking of what I found on the internet." Technus flew into the tree, possessing it. The entire machine glowed green, and it began to push against Danny's arms a lot harder. "Schwaver Breyer's Goose Guild," Technus said. "What?" Danny asked, getting an idea. "I can't understand why you are saying it again." Technus opened his mouth to repeat what he said when Danny took the opportunity to fly out. "I said to say your prayers, ghost child." "Oh, curses, you escaped." "You'd be surprised what Technus doofus of machines and others will fall for," Danny said, pulling out the thermos and pulling Technus inside, trapping him. Without Technus, the robot T-Rex powered down lifeless. Danny grabbed it and dropped it outside the recycling center. Either it got recycled, or the recycling center got some free decorations. Either way, win-win since it wasn't being used for evil, Danny thought, satisfied, flying off. "Let's meet the new Rangers." Danny arrived at Fenton Works and headed down to the lab. "Danny, you're here. Great. Meet the Phantom Rangers, Julie, Debbie, and Billy Chong." The Chang triplets, Danny finished, knowing these guys were classmates of Penny's. I thought you were looking for people in college. How did these guys get the job? We graduated early, said Julie, or was it Debbie? Answered. With all the extra classes and college prep our parents had us take, we had enough credits to get started on college. On paper, we're doing an internship with your parents through Fenton University, Billy explained. That way, we've got a secret identity, and our parents won't complain we're wasting time we could spend studying, he grumbled. Danny understood why he wasn't a fan of his parents. I thought back to when Sam and Henry had done the dating service. Billy had been the guy Sam had picked. They'd dated for a few months before his parents had made him end the relationship. If it makes you feel better, Sam didn't date much after you, Danny told him. His female best friend was a lot pickier than Tucker was before Velma, about whom she dated. Billy smiled hopefully, probably thinking he still had a chance. Danny shrugged. He didn't know he wasn't clockwork. So don't leave me in suspense. Let's see you guys morph. The triplets nodded. Ready, the girl in red asked. Note to me, ask Penny whether Julie or Debbie Chang likes to wear red. Ready, the other two triplets said. Phantom Force going ghost, the three said together, putting their keys into the Phantom morphed. There was a flash of light, and when it was clear, 3 Power Rangers stood in their place. Phantom Force green, the Green Ranger said, posing. The golden DP logo shined on her chest as she entered a martial arts stance. The Green Ranger's uniform was mostly green with gold gloves and boots, the DP logo on the other side of her helmet. Phantom Force blue, Billy said, entering an identical stance. His costume was the same as his sister's, though blue with silver gloves. Phantom Force red, Danny's successor said. She was the only one in a suit. Her logo was half black, half white, same with her gloves and boots, maybe because he'd used the morpher before. Maybe it was a choice thing. Power Rangers Phantom Force, they said together. Danny smiled, impressed. I think we're going to work great together. No. Oh, come on, Daddy, please, Penny said, batting her eyes at her daddy. Aunt Diana will keep an eye on me. Yeah, and the minute Diana's back's turn, you and Danny will sneak off somewhere and make me a grandpa, so my answer is still no, Oscar said, ignoring the scarlet blush on his daughter's face. Daddy, Danny, and I don't do that, Penny denied scandalized. Oscar, stop teasing your daughter, Trudy cut in. My sister invited Penny to spend spring break with her in New York, and I think it's a great idea. But Trudy, Oscar tried to deny. If Danny and Penny were really fooling around, do you really think not letting them go to New York would stop them? Trudy reasoned, ignoring the growing redness of Penny's cheeks. Be on your best behavior, Penny. Yes, Mom, promise, Penny said, quick to leave the room since she got parental permission. Why were you giving her such a hard time? You like Danny? Suga Mama asked. I do like the boy. He's the only decent boy that Penny ever brought home. That doesn't mean I want to be a grandpa before Penny graduates college. Fair point, son. Thank you, Mama. Guess even a broken clock is right once. Hey, New York City, Danny thought, flying above the New York skyscrapers. Man, it's been a while since I've been here, Danny said as he flew to where he was supposed to meet Penny, her cousin Chanel, and Aunt Diana. Checking the address on his phone again, Danny was about to keep flying when he saw lightning flying up from a building. Getting the feeling that something was wrong, Danny flew down, seeing something weird even for him. A 10-foot jackal standing on 2 feet shooting lightning at a red dragon. Give it up, Dragon Fire, you might have been the champ, but compared to Jimmy the Jackal, you're a chump, he said, firing a blast. Dragon Fire. Danny remembered that name. He was a pro wrestler who dressed up like a dragon. Danny's dad was a fan of the guy. He disappeared after every wrestler, but he and the guy he beat were arrested for something Danny wasn't sure what. Dude, I haven't wrestled in years, Dragonfire said with a Brooklyn accent, dodging the blast, but the only chump here is you. Danny watched Dragonfire fly at Jimmy the Jackal, spinning and hitting him with his tail. Wow, that's a well-made costume. If I didn't know better, I'd say it was real, Danny thought, amazed. Jimmy the Jackal grabbed Dragonfire by the tail and slammed him into a wall across the street. People began to scatter, looking scared, before Jimmy the Jackal walked over, picking up a dumpster. I'm gonna crush you, Dragonfire. Now, Danny felt it was time to step in. Hey, Kibble Breath, put a shirt on. You're scaring the locals, Danny quipped, firing a ghost ray that made him lose grip of the dumpster in his hands. It dropped trash first on his head. Danny flew over, helping Dragonfire to his feet. Hey, champ, want to tag team this jackal? Dragonfire looked at Danny, nodding, putting a scaly claw in his hand and pulling himself up. Sure thing, let's cream this clown. No way am I losing again. Jimmy the Jackal yelled, a sandstorm spiraling around him. I'm gonna PND you both into the sand, then I'm going to get my revenge on Kim Possible and her annoying alien-changing boyfriend. The necklace around his neck glowed before a blast of sand flew at them. Yeah, a lot of people have lost to Kim and Ben. Get in line, Danny and Dragonfire said at the same time. The two looked at each other. Jimmy the Jackal growled, firing another blast of sand their way. The necklace, Danny said. Dragonfire nodded. Dragonfire flew at Jimmy the Jackal, unleashing a blast of fire. Jimmy the Jackal fired golden blasts from his eyes, meeting the fire. Danny flew forward, sneaking up behind Jimmy, the Jackal, grabbing the necklace around his throat. No, get away from that, Jimmy the Jackal howled, trying to grab Danny, but Danny dodged, turning intangible and flying away with the amulet. Jimmy the Jackal began to shrink, becoming less and less the Jackal and 100% Jimmy, a little middle-aged guy in a skirt. No. Danny grabbed Jimmy by the neck. Ladies and gentlemen, your champion Dragonfire, flying off, dropping Jimmy off with the cops before finally meeting up with Penny, her cousin Chanel, and her Aunt Diana. Hi appealing, Danny said. You're very late, Penny pointed out. Sorry, there was this former wrestler who was getting attacked by a little man pretending to be an Egyptian god, Danny explained. It's fine, boo, we're waiting for Chanel's boyfriend, Penny said. I'm here, an Asian American guy with a red jacket, jeans, and way too much hair gel said, kissing Chanel on the lips. Hey, sorry I'm late. You're fine, Jake. You aren't the only boy who showed up late, Chanel said, looking at Danny. Yo, you're dannyphantom, he said. Jake Long, nice to meet you. Same, Danny said. For a second, Jake's hand became scaly in Danny's. It was just like Dragonfire, Danny realized. Jake smiled knowingly. Danny nodded back before the two sat down for lunch with their girlfriends and aunt. Danny double-checked his tie was straight. He had the corsage in its box. Yep, he had everything. He knocked on the door. Penny's mom answered smiling, Hi Danny, you look very handsome. Come on in. Thanks, Mrs. Proud, Danny said, stepping in. There was a baseball game on the TV that Oscar Swampy's dad, Mr. Boulevardes, and Suga Mama were watching. Hey, everyone. Hey Danny, my don't you look handsome, Suga Mama said, patting Puff sitting in her lap. The poodle didn't take his eyes off the game. Or it's just the ball. Thanks, Suga Mama, Danny thanked, sitting and watching the game for a little bit before Penny came down. Danny's eyes were instantly drawn towards his girlfriend. Standing up, he watched, entranced, as she walked down the stairs. She wore a floor-length dark red prom dress with black straps around the sides of the top of her arms, leaving her shoulders bare. Her hair was out of its usual ponytails in a nice blowout between her shoulder blades. Oscar saw this and elbowed Felix. Cue cheesy line, he whispered. How is it you get more appealing every time I see you? Danny asked when Penny made it to the bottom of the stairs, getting a blush from his girlfriend. Now Penny calls him her pet name, Oscar whispered to Felix. The two laughed quietly, not watching the game. Suga Mama whacked both men on the head with her cane. All of this went completely unnoticed by the two teens in love who only had eyes for each other. Thanks, boo, she said, Danny, handing her the corsage in the box. Sorry if it got a little messed up. The box ghost tried to steal it. The corsage, Penny asked, putting it on, smelling the flower, and smiling at the scent. The box, Danny answered, getting a laugh from Penny before he offered her his arm. Shall we, Mississippi Proud? Penny smiled, looping her arm through his, we shall, Mr. Fenton. Danny and Penny walked out of the door, heading towards the limo. Those two always like that, Felix asked. Every Saturday night unless something happens and he has to cancel it happens, Oscar answered. Felix laughed. Those two got it bad for each other, it's the same way I looked at Sunset when we were dating. Yeah, Oscar agreed, looking at Trudy, who was walking up the stairs, thinking back to when he was in college and he first met his friend Deborah, roommate. I'm gonna be walking Penny down the aisle to Danny someday, aren't I? Oscar thought, accepting it. Sure, he had a hard time accepting that Penny was growing up and dating, especially with the guys before Danny, but he'd come to accept it after years and years and years and years. So Felix, who's Lacey Aniga going with? Oscar asked. Felix shrugged. I've got no idea. Lacey doesn't talk to me or Sunset about her boyfriends. I think that's one reason Sunset signed up to be a chaperone to see who her date was. You know most parents would call that spying, right? Most parents would say you used to do worse when your rule for your kid dating was she couldn't till she was married, Felix pointed out. I'm indeed a parent, and I always said it, Suga Mama agreed. Fair point, and no one asked you, Mama. Boy, if I waited to talk for you to ask me, I wouldn't say anything, Suga Mama said. And who says you can tell your mama what to do, she said, whacking him on the head again with her cane. "Sorry, Mama," Oscar said. The limo pulled up to Penny High School. Danny opened the door before turning, holding his hand, and helping Penny exit the car. Penny stood up, taking his hands. Danny and Penny walked over to the driver's side, the driver being Wolf dressed in a chauffeur uniform. "Thanks for the ride, Wolf," Danny said. Between ghost-fighting homework and getting ready for prom, it had slipped Danny's mind to rent a limo. It also was beyond his allowance. He didn't want to borrow money from Sam. Luckily, he didn't have to, as Wolf had found a limousine in a junkyard that Buzz and Kevin were happy to restore for free. Wolf volunteered to be a driver for the evening. "No problem," Wolf said with a doggy grin. "And if something happens, get Penny home and kick any ghosts that try to come near her," Danny added. Wolf nodded with a grin. "No problem, friend," he promised. "Have a good time," Wolf said before driving off, looking for a place to park. "You really got me a bodyguard for the night?" Penny asked as they walked into the school. "I just want you to be safe in case something happens, and there's an emergency." Danny promised Luke and Sam were keeping their eyes on things in Amity Park. Tucker, Buzz, and Henry were at their own proms. Penny nodded in understanding. "Have I mentioned you look really appealing tonight?" "Only about 100 times in the limo." "Then you're due again because you look really appealing," Danny said, getting a kiss from his girlfriend as they walked into the gym together. It looked like the prom set up at Casper High, the only real difference was the school colors were different. Danny and Penny headed to a table where Zoe and Daijone were with their dates. "Hey Danny," Sticky said, sitting next to his date Daijone. Yeah, that still was something that came as a surprise to Danny even after Penny had explained that Sticky has feelings for Daijone, but he didn't like how forward she was with him. The two got together after an incident after being let out of juvenile. 3 bullies who had a grudge against Sticky the Altos had somehow gotten their hands on Bang Baby gas, the stuff that had caused the Dakota City Big Bang, and created all the metahumans that Static and the other heroes in Dakota City fought. To get payback, they'd kidnapped Daijone. Sticky had come to Danny and asked to borrow the red phantom morpher since Danny hadn't given it up then. He agreed, handing it to Sticky and saying that Danny would come as backup if Sticky needed it. He didn't. The fight had been crazy. Sticky might have been inexperienced with the powers of the morphing grid and being tall, but he was crazy smart. He had essentially tricked the 3 metahumans, who barely knew how to use their powers either, into knocking themselves out. The Altos had been dragged off given the Bang Baby cure, and Sticky got himself a girlfriend after a talk. Danny didn't stick around for that. It wasn't his business. "Girl, you look great," Daijone said. "So do you," Penny said, the 3 girls talking about their dresses. Danny went to get a punch for him and Penny. When he got to the table, he felt a hand snake its way into his elbow and a pair of lips on his cheek. Danny turned expecting to see Penny, and instead, he was face to face with Lacey Aniga, who, to his surprise, kissed him on the lips. Danny reacted only then, phasing his arm out of Lacey Aniga's grip and stepping away from her. "Great, I need mouthwash," Danny said. "Oh, Danny, aren't you tired of playing hard to get?" Lacey Aniga asked. "Don't you think it's time you finally stopped bothering with Proud and got with a girl cool enough actually to be with you?" she asked. "Okay, I'm honestly sick of this," Danny said, raising his voice because he was mad at Lacey Aniga for kissing him. He was mad at her for flirting with him every chance she got, and he was mad she kissed him. Lacey Aniga Boulevardez, there is not an us, and there will never be an US. I do not like you, I will never like you, and I am never going to leave Penny for you, and no matter how much you try throwing yourself at me. At this point, a crowd, including Lacey Aniga's mom, began to gather, but Danny didn't care. Lacey Aniga, getting mad at being embarrassed, didn't seem to notice. "You don't get to talk about me that way, Danny Fenton. Look at me, I'm so much prettier than Proud. What does she have that I don't?" "I don't care about how someone looks, I care about who they are," Danny argued. If he had only cared about how someone looked, he would have said yes to Paulina when she pretty much threw herself at him after the disasteroid. "Lacey Aniga, the first time we met, you admitted to walking out on a date with my friend before the drinks came." He lied on his profile. "I was promised a cool guy, and I got a total geek," Lacey Aniga argued. "I couldn't let myself be seen in public with that. After you crashed my date with Penny, you insulted her after you called my best friend a loser who you said, and I quote, was almost as big a loser as the one you're with, end quote," Danny said. There were some gasps. "Well, I was wrong. I didn't know I was talking to a super famous superhero," Lacey Aniga argued. "See, that's the only thing you care about my fame," Danny said. "If people didn't know who I was or weren't famous, you wouldn't want anything to do with me. You wouldn't try flirting with me or kissing me. You'd be calling me a total loser geek who'd say yes to any girl who asked me out, and then you'd say that's the only guy Penny would be able to get. Lacey Aniga looked like a deer caught in the headlights, but Danny wasn't done. You don't want to date me, Lacey Aniga. You want to be seen dating me. You don't know what I like or want to do after school. You want to be famous by association, Danny said. Honestly, if I had the chance, I'd give up being famous in a heartbeat. Lacey Aniga looked at him, shocked, as he had just said he'd give up breathing if he could. Don't say that, Danny, you're a superhero. Being famous is the whole point, Lacey Aniga said, and I can totally help you with that way more than someone like a total loser proud ever could. It's not about being famous. It's about helping people, Danny said, having enough of this. And don't you ever call Penny a loser again? She's a much better person, a much cooler person than you could ever hope to be. Danny stormed away, walking away from the enraged-looking Latina who looked ready to explode, finally noticing the crowd. Fine, be that way, Danny. I'm done dating you behind proud back too, she called out, trying to get everyone to think Danny was a two-timer, like when she made up a rumor about her and Myron, but no one believed her. Lacey Aniga Bulverdez, Sunset said, grabbing her daughter by the arm as Lacey Aniga finally noticed her mother. You are in so much trouble. Mama, didn't you see that boy? He was so mean to me, and he made up all kinds of nasty things to say about me. Lacey Aniga tried to get her mom on her side. But Sunset wasn't falling for it. Save it, young lady. I heard everything. I'm sure they heard you too on the other side of the country, Sunset said, furious with her daughter. Your father and I are going to have a serious talk about lying to us, Sunset said. What? I never lied to you, Lacey Aniga tried to deny. Really, you lied to us, saying that you stopped doing that teen dating service we paid for because the boy they paired you with was mean and walked out on you. You lied, telling us all about Donnie Lenton bullying you. You lied to your father and I saying you were meeting your prom date here, but you were planning on trying to steal someone who has told you no many times, and you just tried lying saying you were the other woman behind who I thought was your friend's back. Proud and I aren't friends. I'm way too popular to be friends with her, Lacey Aniga said. And that's another thing, you're grounded for treating your friends poorly. Now let's go, Lacey Aniga, she said, pulling her daughter out of the gymnasium. Danny came back to Penny, who was looking sad. You all right, Penny? I'm happy someone sees how nasty Lacey Aniga is, but I feel bad. Before you, there were times when I didn't know. I thought she changed, and we could really become friends. People only change when they want to change, Danny said. I used to care about being popular until I saw how shallow and nasty the popular kids could be, and I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to keep taking my friends for granted. Maybe she'll change. Penny didn't say anything else. The two danced for an hour before Danny had to leave. Dr. Draken had created an army of robots disguised as kiddie meal toys, and Kim needed all the help she could get. Danny kissed Penny before he left, going ghost and flying off to smash robots. Lots and lots of robots. Still, Danny looked at a picture of him and Danny at prom arm in arm with each other and smiling. For the 10th or 11th time today, Danny held back a yawn as he sat in his chair at his high school graduation, listening to the superintendent going on and on. He hadn't gotten a lot of sleep since Skulker had teamed up with Technus to attack him as a graduation present. Danny had spent most of the night on Skulker's island dodging weapons that were even more dangerous and controlled by Technus. Long story short, Danny got the two ghosts to fight over who would get the credit for beating him and trapping them in the Fenton thermos. And now Casper High's 104th graduating class, the superintendent said, finally ending the speech. Principal Ishiyama took his spot at the podium. When I call your name, please come and receive your diploma. One by one, Danny's former classmates were called onto the stage to get their diploma. Danny Fenton, Principal Ishiyama called. People clapped as Danny stood up, his family clapping the loudest. Danny walked onto the stage, taking the diploma from Mr. Lancer. I've been a teacher for many years, Mr. Fenton. I can honestly say I've never had a student quite like you, he said, shaking Danny's hand. Congratulations. Thanks, Mr. Lancer, Danny said, shaking his hand and walking off the stage. After Danny returned to his seat, he drifted off, only waking up when Tucker and Sam's names were called. He cheered for his oldest friends before he drifted back to sleep. Ladies and gentlemen, the graduating class of 2000 and dash, the speaker system gave out as red storm clouds began to form over the football stadium. Danny's ghost sense went off as he felt a familiar shiver go down his spine. Oh man, not Nilox again, Danny groaned in annoyance. A bolt of red lightning struck down. Standing on the 50-yard line was Sharktopus, wearing dark red and black samurai armor. Half his shark face was covered with a burn scar from Sam and her eternal flame. Danny was surprised to see standing in front of Sharktopus were the mummy ghost Hotep Ra, whom Danny hadn't seen since Tucker sicked the Sphinx on him, Prince Aragon, the creep who tried to make Sam marry him against her will, and Penelope Spectra, the world's worst guidance counselor. Though there was something different about the three of them, something in his bones he could tell they were different. They changed, becoming something different, something nasty like Vlad had. They'd become Nylox. Behind them, of course, was an army of Mogurs. Behind him, graduates, school faculty, and parents were being evacuated with help from his parents, Jazz and Valerie. While Danny, Antonio, Buzz, Henry, Luke, and the Changs ran to Danny's side. Is this really your plan? Sushi faces 3 of my enemies and an army of Mogurs, Danny quipped as he went ghost. Tucker had pulled on his beret, tapping a button on the hat, shooting down, covering his body with his steel specter armor. Sam had lit a fireball in her hands. Debbie looked at her siblings before they morphed into the Phantom Force Rangers. Antonio morphed into the Gold Samurai Ranger. Sharktopus grinned, showing off a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth. I have more than enough tricks up my sleeves to destroy you, and when I do, human misery will overflow, and the Senzu River will flood this pitiful realm, he gloated before Spectra Aragon and Hotep Ra stepped forward. Ready? Spectra asked sinisterly before holding up her wrist. What was on it shocked Danny. It was a morpher. Aragon and Hotep Ra mimicked her. Ready, they said. Senzu River rise, they said in unison, tapping their morphs in unison. Senzu River poured out from the morphers forming around their bodies before it changed into cloth. Each of the ghosts turned Nylox was now wearing a dark-colored Power Ranger uniform, Spectra in red, Hotep Ra green, and Aragon blue. There were spikes on their bracers and shoulders. The helmets looked like sharks' heads, the teeth surrounding the visors. Since when are evil Power Rangers a thing? Tucker asked. According to historical records since the first appearance of Power Rangers in Angel Grove, though in the past evil Power Rangers tend to join their more heroic compatriots shortly after, Luke explained. I doubt the pattern will continue with these 3. Not likely, Danny thought. How do you get a hold of the morphing grid? The morphing grid draws its power from both the greatest source of good at any given time. And also the greatest source of evil, Sharktopus explained. You can thank an old friend of yours in Wisconsin for helping me to access the grid. An old friend, Danny thought before it came to him, Ranger's still alive. I knew it, Buzz shouted. I knew I wasn't crazy. Okay, Danny needed to learn what Buzz was talking about. He'd ask about it later. You know, assuming they survive this, that is. With a wave of his hand from Sharktopus, the Mogurs charged forward. Tucker stepped forward, bending over slightly. A missile shot from the top of his backpack, destroying the first 2 lines of Mogurs. I've always wanted to use that, Tucker said before pulling out his blasters and charging into the fight, the Rangers and the others following after him into the action. I've always wanted to do that, too, Danny admitted quietly before charging into the fight. Antonio uses his Barracuda blade to slash through the army of Mogurs. Tucker fired shot after shot, trapping Mogurs in the thermoses built into his gauntlets or blasting them with his blasters, sending the fish-faced freaks flying. 3 Mogurs swung their swords at his head. Tucker blocked with his bracers, rocketing forward with his jetpack, knocking them to the ground. He turned and fired his thermoses, trapping the Mogurs inside. Without the Senzu River, they'd dry out inside the thermos, turning into mud. The only problem was cleaning the mud out of his suit later. Watch out, Debbie Chong, the Green Phantom Ranger, cried out from where she was fighting with Mogurs. Tucker turned in time to dodge a blast from Hotep Ra. Greetings, my liege, Hotep Ra said mockingly, pulling out a hook-shaped sword. I will savor smiting you and claiming your kingdom. Tucker's one-time advisor charged at Tucker, swinging his sword at him. Tucker dodged the attack and opened fire, blasting Hotep Ra with his blasters. When Tucker hit Hotep, Rasa's body turned to sand, the blasts passing harmlessly through him. He couldn't see it, but Tucker could tell he was grinning underneath the ranger helmet. Hotep Ra was smiling when the mummy ghost turned Nylox swung his sword, hitting Tucker across the chest and sending him sliding back. Hotep Ra rushed forward, grabbing Tucker by the helmet and pushing him into the wall. A cracks began to form in his visor. You will regret not using the scarab scepter in this fight, my pharaoh, Hotep Ra said. If you surrender it to me willingly, I'll let you live in my new empire when I take over the world. Tucker laughed weakly. I gave it up, he said. What? Hotep Ra stepped back, shocked. Why would you give up the scarab scepter? You had unlimited power. You were a god on earth. You could have ruled the world unopposed. That's not the point of being a leader. It's about helping the people, Tucker explained, holding up his bracer and ejecting the contents of the Fenton thermos. Dark red mud covered Hotep Ra's faceplate. Tucker broke free and opened fire, hitting him with blaster shot after blaster shot. Sparks flew off Hotep Ra's costume. Debbie joined in, standing at Tucker's side and using her phantom rifle to blast his ancestor's advisor, sending him flying back and crashing into the field. "I learned that after meeting you," Tucker said, about to move on and keep fighting when sand swirled around Tucker and Julie before they were sent flying back. The sand reformed into Hotep Ra. "You learned the wrong lesson, my pharaoh," Hotep Ra said, picking up Tucker's steel specter helmet and crushing it in his hand. Sam was throwing blasts of the eternal flame one after another at the Mogurs, drying out instantly when coming in contact with the gift she got from Loki. Sam wiped the sweat from her forehead as she fought back-to-back with Billy. "Bet your graduation was a lot easier," she quipped to him. "Wouldn't know I didn't get one. I just got a diploma in the office," Billy said, using his phantom mace to PND a Mogur and send it flying. "So this probably isn't the best time, but who knows, we might not get another time." "Billy point," Sam said, punching a Mogur, knowing her ex could ramble and take a minute getting to the point. "Will you go on a date?" Billy asked. Before Sam got the chance to answer, fireballs flew from above. Sam grabbed Billy's shoulder and barely got out of the way in time as the fireballs landed. Stepping out of the fire was Aragon. "Hello, my former bride," he mocked, pulling out a two-handed sword. Dragon wings shot out of his back as he rushed forward, swinging the sword. Billy intercepted sword and mace, colliding. "Out of my way, you insolent ranger." "Not going to happen," Billy said, using his free hand to pull out his blaster, hitting Aragon straight on in the chest. Aragon shrugged off the attack before swinging, knocking him away. "Billy!" Sam cried out, rushing at Aragon, throwing blasts of fire at the evil Blue Ranger. Aragon batted away the fire with his sword before swinging it at her, sending a red slime at Sam and trapping her in a bubble. Aragon stepped towards her. "Look at you, the champion of Loki, with the power of the eternal flame," he mocked, spinning his sword. "I am burdened with glorious purpose, and with the power of the Senzu River, I will take back my kingdom with a proper human bride this time and execute you and my treacherous sister to ensure none even think to oppose me again." Sam couldn't help but snort. "I have you at my mercy, and you dare laugh at me, you witch?" Aragon asked. "Just like your last dumb plan, you didn't think things through," Sam mocked. "You're a Nylok. You can't stay away from the Senzu River forever, or you'll dry out." Sam could obviously see Aragon losing his cool. "Also, look behind you. Do you really think I'm insane enough to fall for?" Aragon was cut off by Billy hitting him in the face with his mace, knocking him away. Billy turned and blasted the prison holding Sam, freeing her. Sam nodded thankfully. Aragon had recovered by this point, charging at the two. Sam and Billy charged, working in perfect sync with each other. The two kept Aragon on the back, Billy slamming his phantom mace against the ground, creating a shockwave. At the same time, Sam fired a stream of fire. The two attacks combined, creating a flaming shockwave that crashed into Aragon, sending him flying back. At this point, Sam was breathing heavily. Her graduation gown was clinging to her body like a second skin, thanks to all the sweating she'd done from using the eternal flame so much, but it didn't matter. Sam was a fighter. She had always been a fighter, and while she hadn't always picked the best fight or the best way to go about it, helping people fighting ghosts with Danny and Tucker was the most important fight she'd ever been a part of, and she was never going to give up. Aragon pulled himself up, his visor glowing blue. "I've had enough of this," Aragon shouted before his visor began to open. Sam pushed Billy behind her and conjured a shield of fire just as Aragon unleashed a massive stream of fire from his mouth. An explosive shockwave crashed into Sam and Billy, sending them crashing down. Aragon stepped over towards them, placing his boot on Sam's chest and pushing down, making it hard to breathe. "Now, who is the one who doesn't think things through, witch?" Aragon taunted, using her own words against her before kicking her in the face and knocking her out. With Danny, he'd been overwhelmed from near the start. It was like every Mogur wanted to be the one to chop him into pieces. It's probably because he beat their last boss and his psycho kids, but hey, that wasn't his fault. Then there was Spectra as a Red Ranger. Danny now knew what it felt like to be on the wrong end of a Power Ranger's punch. It was worse than taking a hit from Pariah Dark Mace. At least during that fight, he had the ectoskeleton to cushion the blows. Now, not so much. Spectra spun, kicking at his face. Danny brought his arms up to block. It felt like he'd been hit by a truck. He was sent flying back. Hotep Ra appeared, hitting him in the ribs and sending him flying towards Aragon, who clotheslined him, stopping his momentum before throwing him into the ground, breaking through the ground. Aragon then tossed him up. "Fire!" Sharkatopus yelled out before he and the three Psycho Rangers fired lightning at him from their fingers. Danny screamed as the evil electricity surged over him and through him. Danny fell to the ground, morphing back. Danny was barely conscious around him. He saw his friends and cousins beaten and on the ground. No. Danny tried to get up, but Sharktopus pinned him down with a tentacle, laughing. Behold the mighty dannyphantom, Sharktopus mocked. Defeated of Pariah Dark, Undergrowth, Vortex, Nocturne, and Vlad Plasmius, the worst of the worst. Sharktopus threw him across the ground. Danny rolled before coming to a stop. Look at you kneeling in the dirt like the worm you are before the might of the Nilox. Sharktopus continued to mock, shocking him with his lightning. Danny grits his teeth to keep from screaming. If you're so mighty, how come you wanted to make Vlad, someone with the same powers as me, into a Nilox? Danny quipped through gritted teeth as he pushed himself up onto his feet. How come I've been kicking your scaly butt whenever you crawled out of your sewer dimension for the past 3 years, he asked. Sharktopus growled. Nilox aren't mighty. You're just a bunch of knockoff boogeymen who smell like a fish market trying to scare people, Danny said, and I'm not afraid, not one bit. Danny didn't notice it at first, but on the Chang's wrists, their phantom morphers began to beep, glowing red, blue, and green, then finally white. Ectogenetic repairs complete initiating recombination sequence, a recording of Jack Fenton chimed before white lights shined from the morphers, creating a portal to the morphing grid. White light showed over the fallen members of Team Phantom, healing their injuries and giving them renewed strength. But that's not all it did. Stepping out one after another were clones of Danny, though their features differed about them. Some were tall, some short, some muscular, some skinny, some with different hair, and so on. Henry, Luke, and Buzz recognized them instantly. Brothers, they muttered, recognizing their fellow clones from Vlad's first cloning attempt after becoming a Nilok. Danny's eyes were drawn to 4 specific clones, one larger and more muscular, one thin one who was 6 inches tall, and one who looked like Danny but with a shaved head and a birthmark that could be mistaken for scars at a distance. Brothers, Danny said, tears in her eyes as she couldn't help rushing over. She hugged the 4, and they hugged her back. What is this? Sharktopus demanded, shocked. These clones died years ago saving this miserable world from the disasteroid. I know it. Danny smirked, feeling refreshed as he cracked his knuckles. This is a family reunion, Danny answered, and you weren't invited. Danny looked back to the others, ready. Ready, everyone echoed back in unison. We're going ghost. Phantom Force going ghost. We don't have a battle cry, Tucker shouted. Everyone who could morph before they charged. Sharktopus, if he were smart, might have retreated at the surprise of 29 new enemies, but no one ever called the Nilok smart. He summoned more Mogers. Crush them all, he shouted, charging into the fight. The fighting was fierce. The clones tore through the Mogers like wrapping paper on birthday presents. Sam and Billy, working together, overwhelmed Aragon, tricking him into trying the same fire attack as before but firing into his open visor this time. The ghost tyrant turned Nilok exploded in a ball of blue flames. Hotep Ra turned into a sandstorm, sending clones flying and making it difficult to see Tucker using his PDA to hack into the school sprinkler system and turn it on. Hotep Ra, when hit with the water, turned from sand into mud and tried and failed to reform into the evil Green Ranger completely and was a sitting duck for Tucker and Debbie to fire, destroying the Nilok. Spectra was the hardest of the Psycho Rangers to beat, knocking around clone after clone and knocking Henry into Luke before drawing 2 swords and rushing at Danny. There's no way I'm giving up, she yelled insanely, not that anyone would say Spectra was ever completely sane in the first place, as she rushed at Danny. I've never tried using this power in a fight, Danny thought. Here goes nothing. As Spectra swung her swords at Danny's neck, Danny turned into green smoke just like his evil self from the future did. He'd screamed when he developed this power, and part of him even worried that he was becoming just like him. But Danny knew better. He had what he didn't: friends, family, the love of his appealing girlfriend, and the promise that he'd keep that he wouldn't become him ever. Danny reformed behind a shocked Spectra, holding up a hand powering up a ghost ray. Danny fired the ghost ray, overwhelming Spectra and disintegrating her. Soon, the Mogers were either destroyed or were drying out from not being in the Senzu River. Even Sharktopus was beginning to dry out. He was beginning to dry out. It's over, Danny said coldly. Now give up. Never, Sharktopus swore. I don't care if it takes me 100 years, 1,000 years, or 100,000 years. I will conquer this world and wipe out your entire bloodline. I will make them curse your name and the day you walked into the ghost portal. Danny knew Sharktopus would keep that promise if he could, so Danny wouldn't let him escape to do it. Not going to happen. Danny and the others fired in unison. Their combined attacks were too fast, hitting Sharktopus before he could escape, destroying him completely and entirely in a red explosion. Ordinarily, I'm opposed to the killing of sharks, Sam said, looking at the spot where Sharktopus had been standing with hatred. Danny couldn't blame her. Sharktopus had spent a while messing with Sam's emotions, feeding on them to make himself powerful, and probably would have eaten her when he was done, but he's an exception. I second that, Tucker said, looking at his destroyed helmet and picking up the pieces. I'm really hoping that's the last we see of Nylock. Danny and Sam seconded that before they hugged. Hey, a clone shouted. Danny needed to figure out which one. He'd have to learn their names later. Let's celebrate. Everyone else gave a resounding cheer at that. Before they left, a giant explosion happened, and Sharktopus grew to a giant size. I completely forgot they can do that, Danny grumbled. I will destroy you, dannyphantom, as Sharktopus L. raised his foot to stomp on our heroes. A giant samurai robot with wings on its back came down and kicked the giant Nylock in the face. The samurai rangers, what are they doing here? Sharktopus yelled as he stumbled from the kick. Fantastico, they got my message and are here to help, Antonio said. Sharktopus fired a barrage of teeth from his mouth. As the Battlewing Megazord flew up and dodged the attack. The Battlewing Megazord flew high into the air, its gears on its back wings, charging with yellow energy before striking Sharktopus down by plummeting and slicing him in half. Nuu, the Nylock screamed before he exploded. Samurai Ranger's victory is ours. The Red Ranger said. That was so amazing. Tucker gasped in amazement. Thanks for calling your team, Antonio? Danny thanks Jazz's boyfriend. It's no problem, amigo. Also, my team will finally seal the Sanzo River so Nylocks will never invade Earth again. Antonio said. That's awesome. Danny stated. So wait back up a minute, Penny asked, holding a hand and sitting next to him on the Fenton Works couch at Team Phantom's graduation party. The clones have been alive this whole time. Well, alive isn't the exact word, Danny said before going into how his parents explained it to him when they asked him to give up the Red Phantom morphed minus the slideshow they had. Okay, so Vlad recycled the DNA from Danis brothers and mixed it with Senzu River water. Then he used a computer to mold the clones so that they looked at me on the outside, but on the inside, they weren't completely stable. Not till he added Danny's DNA to the mix were they semi-stable, Danny said, looking towards Danny, who was happily talking with her clone brothers. They'd been close, unaware of Vlad, who had played them against each other, and she had hidden that their melting into goo had really hurt her. Danny had rarely left the fourth side. She only briefly talked with her 5 clone sisters. Yes, sisters, because of Vlad's cloning tech, one of every 5 clones got 2 Y chromosomes instead of an X and a Y like Danny. And Danis DNA gave Luke and Buzz their sapience, Penny said. With it, there were more Fenton genes than the Senzu River. Danny nodded. Yeah, something that my parents and Tucker figured out, and unlike with Henry, Luke, and Buzz, they couldn't use ecto-dejecto to purge the Senzu River from their genes. The river water was the only thing keeping them stable, but if they didn't do something, the water would overwhelm the human DNA, and they'd turn into Nylock. Something no one wanted. One Nylock with ghost powers was bad enough. No one wanted to imagine how much damage 25 could do. And that's where the morphing grid came in, Penny asked. Danny nodded. Yeah, my parents reached out to all kinds of scientists they knew over the years, from ecology to biology geneticists. Even Ben was asked. Though by then, he'd broken the Omnitrix. But only one guy had an answer that could save all of their lives, the morphing grid. By having the clones become part of the grid, the Senzu River water would be replaced with genes from various Power Rangers. Apparently, something similar happened to this one Power Ranger who got mutated into an evil lizard thing. Penny looked around. It explained all the different features so that they looked less like Danny's clones and more like his cousins. So the Changs are getting the morphs. What was that about? Penny asked. Access to the grid whenever the morphs were used sped up the gene restoration, Danny explained. I only used the power as a last resort, so with the rate I was using the morpher, it would have been one clone getting genes restored every 2 years, and they only would have been let out when they were all restored. Penny did the math in her head 29 times 2, and Danny was 17. It would have taken until he was 58 years old for all the clones to be restored. Dang, no wonder you got fired. Danny nodded. Yeah, I would have fired me too. Danny looked around, smiling, seeing all the clones interact with his friends and his family. Jazz loved the idea of having new sisters and was spouting about writing a paper about nature versus nurture and possibly settling the debate. Henry, Luke, Buzz, and their girlfriends, who had come when the party started, were chatting happily with the clones. Mina looked overwhelmed about suddenly having 23 new possible in-laws. Gwen was curious about the morphing grid and what living inside it was like, and Alex was unfazed by the situation as she talked with one clone happily. Makes sense, she's a spy. Probably sees some weird stuff on the job, Danny thought. Not that I know anything about spies, Danny quickly thought, not sure if any of the clones had telepathy. Danny was going to watch what he said until he did. And last, he saw his dad, Tucker Billy, and one husky clone having an eating contest while his mom, Sam, and Velma watched while rolling their eyes. Danny would have fired his parents if it meant moments like this would come sooner. Danny smiled, watching until he got a call from Ben. Yeah, okay, I'm on my way. I'll call Supergirl as backup, and we'll meet you there, Danny said before looking to Penny. So aliens are invading Middleton. Penny nodded understandingly, giving him a kiss on the cheek. Be careful and come back in one piece, she asked. Danny nodded. Do you want some backup, she asked, looking at the clones. Man, they really needed to come up with their own names, and soon. Danny shook his head. Nah, let them have fun. If things get really bad, I'll call. Danny kissed Penny and signaled to Gwen, who'd been watching the conversation out of the corner of her eye before they discreetly left the house. First Nylox, now aliens. Things always got exciting around here, did they? Danny looked back for a moment and smiled as he went ghost. He wouldn't want it any other way. Danny groaned tiredly, sitting back on the couch in Fenton Works. Penny sat down next to Danny, putting his head in her lap and running her fingers through his hair. Long night, boo. I'm not complaining. I'm not going to say that things can't get worse because somehow they'll find a way to get worse, Danny answered tiredly. Danny walked out of the kitchen with a can of Diet Cola in her hands and looked at her brother and his girlfriend. What happened to you? Danny asked. Every professor decided Halloween was the right time to give an exam, Danny explained. Then there's a campus-wide Halloween party. Pretty sure I saw Phantasma when I was leaving. She's a student at Fenton U, Danny asked. Nah, she's probably gatecrashing, Danny answered, letting out a yawn, but I'm not going to complain because nothing, and I mean nothing, can top what I had to deal with last Halloween. Penny nodded. Last year was a lot. Curiously, Danny sat down in a chair by the fireplace. What happened last year? She asked. She hadn't been in Amity Park at the time, having been invited by Buzz to go to a Halloween carnival in Bellwood. It's a long story, Penny said. It doesn't look like you two are going anywhere. Danny pointed a finger at her brother using his girlfriend's lap as a pillow. Okay, here's what happened. A 17-year-old Penny walks down the stairs in her snack girl Halloween costume. Daddy, you're not in the snack business anymore. Why can't we buy different Halloween costumes? She asks of her dad. Hey, I may get more money now that I'm in the pesticide business, but that doesn't mean it grows on trees, Oscar said, not wanting to waste money on something that'd only get worn once or twice. Besides, we're not going anywhere anyways, he said. What? Why not? Penny had plans with her friends, and her parents were going to go to the neighborhood Halloween party that they usually went to. 'Cause your daddy bought a haunted house, Suga's mama answered. Dressed like the bride of Frankenstein. Penny raised an eyebrow. Our house is what now? She asked, looking around. I'm not a ghost hunter or something, but I've lived in this house my whole life. I'm pretty sure I would have seen a ghost before now. Though, hey, if a ghost did show up and if it was up to no good, that'd mean she could see her boo Danny and get a chance to make out. Before any of the Prouds could answer, Jack kicked open the door. Never fear, future in-laws, the Fentons are here, Jack declared, holding a bazooka over his shoulder. Maddie stepped in beside him holding a scanner. Like my husband said, we're here to help. Maddie walked over to the Prouds. Why didn't you ever tell us the house was haunted? I didn't know. The guy who I bought the house from just called me, said the ghost of the original owner showed up as a ghost wanting to know who he sold the house to. Probably should have been a red light about the place when it only cost you $500, Suga's mama snarked. I thought I'd worn him down, Oscar commented, looking defensive when everyone gave him deadpan looks when they heard about the price. Well, no matter how little you paid for this house, it's yours, and the Fentons are going to protect it, Jack said, flicking a light SWCH. Penny looked out of the window. Pylons shot out of the ground, a ghost shield activated. Mr. Fenton, when did you have time to install this? Yeah, when did Dad have time to install that? Danny in the present asked. Danny, don't interrupt now. Where we? Dad installed ghost security at the Prouds. Right, so back to the story. Back in the past. Penny was walking into the kitchen to grab a piece of candy from her daddy's stash that he'd hidden away for himself. Hey, if she couldn't hang out with her friends and her boyfriend was busy fighting a crazy amount of ghosts that were haunting Amity Park for whatever reason, then at least she could have some candy. Looking around her daddy's usual hiding spots and not finding any, she looked on the top shelf of the cupboard. Reaching around with her hands, Penny grinned when her fingers grabbed onto what felt like a candy wrapper. Jackpot! Penny grabbed her treat, opened it and grabbed a piece of candy. Her stomach recoiled, and she felt the need to hurl what she had just put in her mouth. Penny looked at the label and saw it was an old pack of Proud snacks. Scary snacks pumpkin jalapeno flavor. Oh, gross. Penny remembered these nasty things Daddy had tried to get her to eat last year, but when he wasn't looking, she'd stashed them in the back of the cupboard and never looked back. These were those same snacks, and they were as nasty as she had imagined they'd taste, probably worse because they were way past their expiration date. Penny's stomach gurgled and groaned. She felt funny. "Aren't you a little old for Halloween candy?" a strange voice said. Penny turned and was face to face with a man in a dark trench coat and hat looking down at her with red eyes. Okay, either this was a guy who decided to break in, or it was the ghost. Though with the red eyes, Penny was going to lean more toward ghost. "You're never too old for something sweet," Penny said, noticing a ghost blaster on the counter behind him. Hitting the ghost with a round kick to the stomach. She rushed for the blaster, turned and fired. The ghost growled. He didn't look human anymore. His skin was white as Mile, his hair was half black, half white, and he looked like he'd been struck by lightning. "You little BRT, get out of my house." "No, you get out of my house," Penny said, pulling the trigger and firing. The ghost was surprisingly agile, dodging the blast before he levitated Penny. He tossed her through the air. The good news was Penny landed on the couch. The bad news was there was still a ghost in her house, and her stomach felt nasty. "Penny, are you all right?" her mama said, helping Penny to her feet. "What happened?" "That would be me," the ghost said, floating into the living room. "Garrett?" Suga Mama asked in surprised recognition. "Figures you'd be just as nasty in death as you were when you were alive." "Sugar, I almost didn't recognize you with how poorly you aged, though surprisingly that BRT you married has aged rather gratefully, even if he's dressed like a clown." "Hey, no one calls my pops a BRT, you ghost mama." "Who is this clown?" Oscar asked. "Garrett Krebs. He was a nasty old grouch to everyone in town when your daddy was a kid. By the time I knew him, he was a nasty old man who treated everyone around him like garbage. The only thing he cared about was his house. Got a bunch of loans to renovate the place back in the 70s when he couldn't pay and the bank was going to foreclose on him. He died," Suga Mama explained. "It was the only thing to be proud of I had. I wasn't like you. Proud I didn't have friends, no family, I never married, and I never was a father. It ticks me off that someone is living in my house where I died with all the things I didn't have." "Sounds to me like you did that yourself," Jack said with his ghost gauntlets on, throwing a punch at Garrett that did nothing. "That's not what's supposed to happen." Garrett flicks his hand, sending Jack flying back and crashing into a wall. "Jack," the adults say in concern. Maddie growls, aiming a Fenton bazooka at him. "You're going to pay for that," she said, pulling the trigger, but nothing happened. "What's going on?" Maddie said, looking at the bazooka and seeing the battery was missing. "Looking for these," Garrett said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out some batteries. "I'm not an idiot. I've seen that phantom kid come and go for years to smooch with your grandbaby Sugar and his parents setting up their little security. Lucky for me I snuck in a while ago and took the batteries out of your little ghost weapons," Garrett explained with a mad grin, lifting Maddie the way he did Jack, pinning her against the ceiling. "How are the ghost shields still up?" "There's no way you could have gotten through," Maddie said, trying to get free. "I didn't," Garrett said. "In the basement there's a passage that leads down to the sewers. I used it during the Prohibition to get illegal goods out of the house without being seen by the cops. One of the first things I did when I renovated my house was sealed it so no BRTS could sneak into my house." Penny groaned, pulling herself up despite how sick she felt. She was still paying attention. No wonder Garrett was able to get in. He didn't go through the shield. He went under the shield. Garrett lifted the rest of her family, holding them in the air. "What are you going to do to us? You didn't heed my warning to get out of my house, so I'm going to destroy all of you, then take my house back to the ghost zone so no one but me can live in my house." Garrett looked at Penny. "I don't have to waste Phantom's little girlfriend. Whatever she ate is going to do it for me," he said. "Now who to start with? The son of the BRT whose baseball broke my window in 36, his mama, or maybe I'll start from youngest to oldest, get the BRTS out of the way so I don't have to listen to their whining." Garrett lifted BB and Cece towards him. The two toddlers were crying. Penny's parents were struggling to get to the babies, and so were Suga, Mama, and the Fentons, but Garrett's grip on them was too strong. "No," Penny thought as she tried to stand, but she felt so weak. She felt so helpless, watching as a ghost held her baby brother and sister captive, their fearful cries filling her ears. She wished Danny was here, but he wasn't. She needed to do something. She had to do something. Adrenaline filled her as Penny began to stand, her heart pounding in her ears as something began to happen to her. She began to change. Her muscles grew, and her snack girl Halloween costume changed, becoming a pink jumpsuit and mask. "Get away from them!" Penny yelled furiously as, moving on instincts she didn't know, she had shot forward like a cannonball, tackling Garrett Krebs, pushing him out of her house, and taking him higher and higher into the air. The cold wind slammed against her face and her body as she kept taking him higher and higher until the sky changed into a black void of space and stars. Penny looked down and gulped, seeing Earth below her. "Man, it's a good thing I ain't afraid of heights," Penny said with a gulp before she turned to look angrily at Garrett Krebs's ghost. "So being sick and dying was an act, huh?" Garrett Krebs asked rhetorically. "I don't know what kind of muty freak you are, but you're no match for the ghost Garrett Krebs with your freak boyfriend," he said before shooting lasers out of his eyes. Penny, acting instinctively, fired pink lasers out of her own eyes, meeting his pushing his back before sending him back with a powerful explosion that sent him crashing into the moon. Space blurred around her as Penny flew to the moon, landing behind her. She landed near some weird treehouse-looking thing. Penny grabbed Garrett by the collar, picking him up, slammed him face first into the moon again and again and again, thinking about what he'd been planning to do to her family, to her boyfriend's family. All because he wanted a house. Penny grabbed him by the collar and flew up from the moon's surface. She spun him around and around and around before she tossed him with all of her power. Penny could see with her supervision as he flew past Venus and Mercury straight towards the sun. She watched with a grin as his body was completely destroyed in the scorching heat of the sun. "Good riddance," she said, relieved that her family was safe. Penny looked towards Earth, specifically towards Amity Park, and saw one more person she loved was in danger. "Danny," Penny said before she flew off, breaking the sound barrier and rocketing towards Amity Park. In Amity Park, Danny was not having a great Halloween. Danny dodged a yellow blast, and some of the hairs on his head were scorched by the heat of the blast. Because of him, Fright Knight, wearing a yellow and black armor with the emblem of a lantern on his chest, like the one on his ring. Today, Danny learned that there were other Lantern Corps besides the Green Lantern Corps. And they weren't all nice. "You are too late, Ghost Child," Fright Knight laughed menacingly. He'd been using the power of his yellow ring to keep a natural ghost portal from closing, which is why there had been so many ghosts out. "With the power of Halloween and the power of my power ring, fear shall encompass the planet, and I will rule this world." Fright Knight made a constructs of a dozen crossbows the size of 18-wheelers formed around Danny. Giant lemon-colored arrows all flew at Danny. Danny ducked down, dodging the arrows before he flew at Fright Knight, firing ghost rays, but Fright Knight batted them away with his hand. Rushing forward, he punched Danny, sending him crashing into a streetlight. Danny groaned, tapping his Fenton phones. "Please tell me someone found a pumpkin," Danny asked. The only way to get rid of the Fright Knight was to put his sword in a pumpkin and say the magic words. But so far, none of his friends were able to get their hands on a stinking pumpkin. "We're trying. All these ghosts are going out of their way to smash them," Henry said. "Are you sure you don't want backup?" "No, I'll keep him busy." "Just find a pumpkin," Danny said, getting up. He just needed to keep tall, yellow and spooky busy. Preferably without going from a boy with ghost powers into being an actual ghost. Danny grabbed the Phantom Morpher key. Phantom Force going GH-. Danny was stopped from finishing by a yellow manacle covering his mouth. Two other manacles on his wrist kept him from connecting the key to the Morpher. "Did you really think I'd just stand here and let you become stronger?" the Fright Knight asked with a deadpan. Danny was hoping that'd be the case. "Yes." Danny's eyes turned blue as he shot ghost ice from his eyes, blocking the Fright Knight's helmet and breaking his concentration. Danny grabbed the key. "Phantom Force going, Ghost," Danny said, using the Morpher, becoming the Red Phantom Ranger. "Phantom Saber," Danny shouted, drawing his sword. He rushed at the Fright Knight, drawing the Soul Shredder. The Fright Knight flew at him. Their swords connected. Fright Knight creating a sea serpent construct behind. Danny pulled him away, flinging him into the air. Fright Knight flew at Danny with his sword raised. "Die, Ghost Boy." "Not today, Ghost," Danny heard Penny yell before she flew at Danny, punching him and sending him crashing into the ground. "Wait," Danny thought, flew with big muscles. "Danny, catch," Penny said, throwing Danny a pumpkin. "No, the Fright Knight yelled, flying at him and swinging his sword. Danny blocking and disarmed it with his own sword. Danny flew up, catching the Soul Shredder in the pumpkin. To cease the storm, to end the fear, the sword must sheath in pumpkin near. Fright Knight shouted as he was forced into the pumpkin. The gourd turned yellow, and the natural portal finally shut without the Fright Knight's power keeping it open. Danny looked to Penny, who flew up to him, hugging him. "Happy Halloween, boo," she said before she began to kiss him all over his face and lips, hugging him tightly. "Penny, what happened to you? How are you flying and a lot buffer than usual?" Danny asked, confused. Penny flew back, posing for him. "Don't you like it?" Danny blushed as he quickly answered, not wanting to hurt Penny's feelings. No, you look great. It's just, how did this happen?" Danny asked. "Long story short, I ate expired Proud snacks, got food poisoning, got superpowers, went to space, killed a ghost, helped you trap another ghost, and now I'm here," Penny said before she hugged him, holding him close, her fingers gracing circles on his chest. Do you really want to just talk when we could be doing something else? Ordinarily, I'd say yes, but I think we should go see my parents and make sure you're all right. Danny tried to reason with his girlfriend, wanting her to be safe. Oh come on boo, I feel fine, Penny said before suddenly she turned green and hurled all over Danny's boots. And that's what happened last Halloween, Danny said, finishing the story to a laughing Danny, who was laughing at the ending. Yeah, get it out of your system, he said, rolling his eyes. Okay, I'm done, Danny said once she got the giggles out of her system. Wow, you guys went through a lot. Did you ever figure out why you got superpowers? No, and I can't say I really miss them. Penny admitted it had been amazing all that power, but it wasn't worth it to eat anymore. Proud snacks, Penny said before leaning down and kissing Danny on the forehead. You can be the super one in the relationship. You're already super with or without powers, Danny said before leaning up and kissing Penny on the lips. Danny pretended to GG seeing her brother and Penny get affectionate before she left the two alone. Happy Halloween you too, she said, heading up to her room giving the couple some alone time. You know you were annoying when I had high school homework, but now, with college homework, you're a gigantic pain, Danny said. Before pulling out the Fenton thermos, trapping the box ghost. Danny let out a tired yawn, stretching his back before he flew back to his dorm. Danny looked around, not seeing his roommate anywhere, before shrugging and putting the thermos on his bedside table. He would grab his phone, grab some dinner, and finish his homework. Danny was pulled out of his thoughts on where to go for food when his phone buzzed, saying he got a text. Danny looked at it and was surprised when he read who it was. His eyebrows shot up into his hair, seeing who it was from. An hour later, Danny was walking into the Nasty Burger. It was late, so there were few people in the restaurant. Pretty much no one but Katie. Danny hadn't seen her in years, not since Vlad kidnapped her as part of his plan to frame him. Though Katie probably would have been targeted anyways for the sucker punch she hit him with at the carnival, probably the best part of that night. Danny walked over and sat next to her. She was taller, her hair was longer, and she had an Empire State University hoodie and little X-shaped earrings in her lobes. Katie was looking down at her hands. Hi, Danny said awkwardly, sitting down across from her. Thanks for coming, she said, looking up at him. I promise this isn't some kind of move to try and steal you from your girlfriend. Yeah, I kind of figured we hadn't seen each other in years, Danny said with a shrug. Truth be told, the last thing he'd been thinking of was Katie trying to make a move on him. It never happened to Danny, but he was pretty sure feelings didn't last when a guy with your face kidnapped you. Not to be insensitive, but how did one of my cousins kidnap you? He didn't. The robot guy with the flaming mohawk who wants your pelt on his bed hit me with knockout gas when I wasn't looking. She had a bit of a cocky smirk on her face for a second before she shook her head. I can pass. Sorry to whoever Vlad sent. I kinda threw him into a dumpster. It was Carter, and yeah, I'll pass the message, Danny said. Katie nodded. She and Danny slipped into an awkward silence. I'm sorry, Danny said, about what happened with the date 3 years. I should have been honest and told you about your powers. Katie let out a cold laugh. You don't have to apologize. You didn't do nothing wrong, she said. What Danny thought. I'm pretty sure I did. I lied. I let you think I had feelings when I didn't, Danny said. Pretty sure that's wrong. Katie shook her head, a weird look on her face. No, Danny, you didn't do anything wrong, but someone else did, she said. Danny was confused before Katie said, I'm unlike normal mutants. I was enhanced, she began to explain, by someone sinister. Katie let out a hollow-sounding laugh. That was his name. He called himself Mr. Sinister. Before I was born, he snuck into my parents' house and injected my mom with gamma radiation to see what would happen. What happened was my X gene got kick-started, and I started to go kaboom. Danny sat there and listened, though he wasn't sure what this had to do with him. Through this, Mr. Sinister sounded like an even bigger Fruit Loop than the actual Fruit Loop he was used to dealing with. Katie continued, Sinister watched me my whole life like a lab rat in a cage, studying how I'd react to different stimuli using his telepathy to give me suggestions and make them think they were my idea. It's why I joined the dating service and never got angry with other guys until I went out with you. They weren't interesting, they didn't have powers. They weren't viable candidates. Danny had a bad idea of what she meant by candidates, but he had to know. For what? To see what powers would complement mine in the next generation, she said. He used his powers to make me angry. He wanted the ghost boy to show up to rescue the poor human boy from me. Katie laughed a little, though there wasn't anything happy about it. For someone who thought he was so smart he wasn't expecting Danny Fenton to be Danny Phantom, that's when he changed plans. He used his powers to make me happy and fall in love. He used his powers on you and made you, conveniently, forget about the institute. Danny nodded, feeling nauseous and disturbed at how Sinister had messed with his head like that. And what happened to him was only a fraction of what happened to Katie, who'd been used as Sinister's puppet without even knowing it. He didn't pay much attention to you. It's why you could tell my dad about the institute the day after the carnival, Katie answered. He knew us getting together was a lost cause. He didn't want to pick a direct fight with the X-Men, and you were surrounded by people who'd fight to rescue you, but he wanted a kid with our genes, so he looked for other methods. Please tell me this isn't when you tell me he cloned a kid with our DNA, Danny asked. I've had enough clones to last a lifetime. He loved all his cousins even when some of them drove him crazy, like Nick and Scott, but he had enough cousins. No, not clones, the multiverse, Katie said, getting a different internal groan from Danny. Of course, it was multiverse stuff because, sure, why not? Sinister hired this guy named Equinox to bring him a kid of ours from the multiverse. It turns out there's only one place in the entire multiverse where we get married and have kids. Katie pulled out her phone and flipped through her pictures before she slid it to him. Danny's eyes widened, seeing Katie with a green-skinned girl with her hair and his eyes, who looked to be the same age they were now. That's Callie. She's a freshman at Fenton University from Earth 20 decades from now in the future, Katie explained. Sinister Scoons grabbed me when I returned from the library and took me to his secret lab in the middle of nowhere. He wanted to test how his new weapon worked against the original test subject, she said. You can figure out the rest. We broke out and worked together. She beat Equinox, and I made sure Mr. Sinister won't be doing any more experiments. Danny nodded, watching as Katie put away her phone and looked down. Why did you call me Katie? Mostly to apologize, Katie said. Get some closure. I guess I blamed myself for what I put my family through for years, and I found out it all happened because of a Count Dracula-looking mad scientist who likes playing with people's lives. Danny reached over and held Katie's hand. I think we've blamed ourselves enough, he said. Let's stop and start over as friends. Katie nodded for the first time, smiling. I'd like that, she said. The two ordered some food. They talked and laughed at some of Danny's corny jokes. Then, when their food was done, they got up and went their separate ways. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 8. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and Pokemon Fan 1991 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.